Welcome, everyone. Can you hear me? I'd like to call the October 5th regular meeting of the Encinitas Planning Commission to order at 6 p.m. And I think we can dispense with a roll call. I see all 5 commissioners are present. We like to begin each meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'd like to care to join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you for that. We start each meeting with oral communications, where anyone wishing to speak on a topic not on tonight's agenda can fill out one of these white slips. Comments or questions during oral communications cannot be addressed or discussed by the commission or staff, but may be referred to someone else for further digging into. Dina, do we have any oral communications?
We don't have any this evening.
We do not. Okay, well, that was my spiel anyway. Do we have any changes to the agenda? Hearing none, we move on to our consent calendar. These items are considered non-controversial or routine in nature. All consent calendar items are typically voted on collectively in a single motion without any staff presentation, public comment, or deliberation. However, if someone in the audience or one of the commissioners wishes to pull a consent item to be heard, they can request it by, for you guys who would be filling out one of these things. Items removed from the consent calendar will be heard individually immediately after the consent calendar vote. Tonight we have 3 items. We have the Robley Bluff Top demolition. I didn't write down the address, but this is the public hearing to consider a request to demolish the existing fire-destroyed structure on Neptune Avenue and a complete surface level cleanup. We also have the approval of minutes from August 17th and the approval of minutes from September 7th. Dina, is anyone?
No items have been pulled.
No? Oh, Chris?
I would like to pull 6A for presentation.
Okay, I know I got a note about a couple of us weren't here at those 2 meetings, but that's already handled in the minutes. So I'd entertain a motion for the consent calendar.
I'm pulling A, but I was not present for.
Oh, you're pulling 6A. Okay,
Yes.
so actually that's a good one to pull. It's the only interesting one. So we'll move on with the consent calendar vote for items 6B and 6C.
I make a motion to approve the consent calendar for 6B and 6C.
I'll second.
All right. All in favor?
I have to recuse from the 17th, right? Because I was absent.
I spoke to the attorney before this, and since we've passed that along in the minutes and it's in the public record, that's accepted that you're recusing for the ones you're not there. Although the lawyer seems to indicate that we can still vote on to approve minutes for meetings we weren't there.
Okay, thanks.
Because they're good or they're not good, and they accurately reflect things. All right, consent calendar passes unanimously, and we'll go on to item 6A, which is the Robley Bluff Top demolition, number 5992-2023. Chris, do you want to lead off on questions, or do you want to hear a staff presentation?
I'd like to hear a staff presentation.
Thank you. I see Jay DeCoso here.
Hello? Oh, there we go. Sorry. Robley demolition. This property is located at 1478 Neptune Avenue. Oops, sorry. The property, there's more photos in attachment PC2 for you in the staff report. 1478 Neptune, it's the demolition of an existing fire-destroyed duplex and surface level cleanup. Unfortunately, the fire event took place in December 23, 2019, and here we are today to authorize the coastal development permit to raise the structure. And the property is split zoned. It is zoned, the residential pad is zoned residential 11, and the bluff top is EROS PK. The applicant provided a memo today with a number of points clarifying the project. And that's provided to a memo to you that was submitted this afternoon. The first point that the applicant made a point of is that the staff made the point that the emergency permit issued by the coastal development permit was void. The applicant provided photographs and an email that's included in your memo, and staff is recognizing that the applicant is correct and the emergency coastal development permit has been implemented and not voided. The second point is the applicant requested that the fire event date be corrected. In the project characteristics section, the fire event was described as September 30, 2019, which is a typo. But in the first bullet of the background section, the fire event was noted as December 23, 2019. And staff recognizes the correction. The applicant now had a third comment regarding a condition of approval that said that all stormwater drainage would not go over the bluff and be directed towards the public storm drain to the maximum extent practical. Since the foundation work the proposed demolition includes an erosion control plan, which would direct all the drainage to Neptune Avenue. Staff responded that staff would maintain the condition as proposed, since the demolition plan includes an erosion control plan. The applicant had a third point regarding the 30-day requirement to submit a building permit for the demolition following tonight's approval, if approved. So staff rewrote the condition, stating that a building permit shall be submitted within 30 calendar days of the final approval, including conclusion of all city and coastal commission appeal periods. And failure to apply for the building permit application shall be considered a violation of this coastal development permit. The applicant also requested various conditions of approval to be deleted or revised. Staff reviewed all the conditions of approval with each department, and staff recommended maintaining Building 02 and all the engineering and San Diego Water District conditions to remain, which are all relevant since all those conditions of approval are all disclosures relevant to the project. Although the fire department was willing to delete fire conditions 05, 08, and 18, but would maintain fire condition 01 regarding addressing and 24, which regards the preservation of fire lanes. And then the last condition was actually offered by staff. Staff revisited the surf room storage room condition, SCA1, and recommended deleting it. However, since we distributed the memo, we revisited it again, and staff is proposing the replacement of SCA1, which the following condition. As part of the demolition and recognizing that the surf room storage room is part of the foundation, only the superstructure of the surf room storage room shall be removed. Prior to the issuance of the demolition permit, all drainage and related safety concerns shall be addressed with the removal of the superstructure to the satisfaction of the Development Services Department. That concludes my presentation. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission approve the CDP based on the findings of the record and the memorandum as proposed. Thank you.
Do we have questions for staff?
I do. So, thank you for that. And
Yes.
I know there were quite a few changes
Right.
that you just presented. So I kind of wanted to go through them because one of my concerns was, and I want to make sure we're talking about the same thing. When you're talking about building 2, what are you talking about? That was in one of your points.
Building 2.
You could go back
Oh,
there.
building 2 is that building 02 is the condition of approval. It basically says that For the demolition permit, you are required to submit a building permit to demolish the structure. The applicant was basically saying, forgive me if I'm summarizing too much, that you don't need it because it's a demolition. However, when you read the full condition of approval in the proposed resolution, it actually states that these comments are preliminary. A full comprehensive plan check shall be conducted, for the end of it. So, but as with any demolition, we do require a building permit. That way it's proof that we've authorized the demolition of this structure.
Okay, thank you. So I had a question about the piece of the structure that is going to remain. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Are you talking about the surf room now?
Yes, I'm talking about the surf room.
Yes.
Can you
Yes, and
show
I
me-
actually have some photos
Okay,
here.
yeah, I looked at the photos and I was trying to figure out exactly what it was referring to. And so I'm wondering what is going to remain and what is not going to remain if we approve tonight.
Okay, so with the new condition of approval, we refer to the superstructure, which is essentially the framing, but we would keep the floor and some of the supporting walls as appropriate as part of the demolition. We did include, as part of that condition, some sensitivity to possibly drainage if it rained for some reason, and we wouldn't want water to pool inside that room. The best analogy I have of as part of the demolition would be if this was the surf storage room, we would remove the roof, but some of the walls and this floor would remain, which would help maintain the stability of the bluff. That would be, now, bluff repair would now be handled under a different CDP once we get going. But our main intent right now is to demolish the structure and remove the nuisance.
Okay, is it possible for you to show me on the photograph exactly what area you're talking about that would remain?
So this area right here is the surf room. Let me share with you a photograph. We went on a site visit, staff, Coastal Commission staff, and our geotech and the applicant last March. No, 2020, or was it 2021? We were there, and this is this is the inside of the surf room. And see this window with this door is essentially, the door is closed here, but that's the window. This is the surf storage room.
Okay, and so everything would be removed except the floor and some of the exterior walls?
Correct.
Would that be the walls that are closest to the bluff?
Probably. Yeah, we would have to talk about it with the applicant.
Okay, and would that be, what's the purpose of keeping the floor and those walls?
It's part of the stability of the bluff. If we remove it, there would be concern now there's nothing holding back the rest of the residential pad, and now it could suddenly just collapse.
Okay, I do have just a little bit of a concern about how that's going to look because part of the purpose is to remove the nuisance.
Understood.
So I have some concerns about whether leaving that structure there will still constitute a nuisance and be attractive to people. Because I've been by this site many times,
Right.
and I know that it's been very attractive to people to enter
Right.
and, do things at the property or remain.
Yeah, part of the concern is currently that bluff, as stated in the report, when the firefighting was going on, the firefighting water had eroded the bluff, right? So there was an emergency permit issued by the Coastal Commission to support the structure. And so the intent was we will fix the surf room and the bluff all in one action pursuant to the regular CDP that would follow the emergency permit.
Okay.
And we just couldn't do it in pieces, if you will.
And if I may, Jay, if you can clarify, it's any habitable space is what we're asking and
Yes.
requiring in this condition of approval to be removed
That's
as part
correct.
of this permit.
Yes. Yeah.
Taken down, is that correct? So that structure, how's that?
Is it green? Is the button green?
Button is green?
Oh,
I'll just talk louder. So, looking at that picture on the right, all that goes away. What about the deck on the left underneath the umbrella? That goes away?
yes,
The pylons stay because that could be potential footings are gonna stay?
correct.
Okay. That lower deck is also then going to stay? outside the door?
Yeah, down here with the chairs.
Well, that, the stairwell, is that gonna stay? Stairwell?
The stairwell, we're not touching it.
Okay. And it goes up to a deck out in front, so where
Correct.
the deck stay?
Are you talking about this deck with the umbrella?
Yeah.
Or just in general? The plan is to remove everything that's built on the property, given safety of the bluff without,
I'm just trying to, so
yeah,
when you fly over this, and all that will be left on the site would be the little room and the four
yeah,
walls.
exposed, right,
Exposed.
yeah.
Yeah, we'll open up public comment in just a minute. This is still us probing, asking probing questions a bit. So you'll have the armed with information when you come up for your comments. Oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't on, in case anyone out there in the world, I think you guys heard me. Yes, oral comment will come after this.
Okay, so I
Steve,
did
go
have
for it.
another question. Sorry, before. Okay, so moving forward, if the floor and those walls, those structural walls remain in order to try to maintain the integrity of the bluff, any use of those walls or floor for any proposed structure would have to go through an entire permitting process as well?
That's correct.
Okay. So keeping that structure today doesn't necessarily say that has to be, that we have to approve in the future the use of that floor or walls as part of the structure?
Yeah, we'll evaluate it when that bluff repair is proposed.
Okay, thank you.
When we're keeping those walls, are they masonry walls or are they wood frame walls?
It looks, I don't know what's behind the wood panels. That's part of the issue also.
So that's going to be a value. I'm having a hard time understanding
Yeah.
the value of 4 walls.
Yeah,
with
from
no
what I
roof.
understand, without going back into too much discussion, at one point there was discussion about simply burying the whole thing. Building a new wall, filling everything, and literally just burying this room. But I don't know if that's still the plan once we demolish it.
Okay. And back on Building 02 condition,
Do you want me to show the condition? If it helps?
you could, I'm reading it on my screen, but this is a building permit just to demolish the building. So we require all the elevations, floor plans, roof plan, material specifications, just because they're going to
It
leave?
would be, I would imagine it would just simply be a site plan showing the property barren.
Right, yeah, I'm reading this to see, it looks like it requires a Title 24 compliance.
No,
document.
it doesn't, because you got to remember, when you read the last 2 sentences of the paragraph, it says these are preliminary. These comments are preliminary. A full comprehensive plan check will be provided.
If I may, it's a standard boilerplate condition that requires a building permit to be obtained. And it kind of covers everything that it could possibly include. And, but once the actual request comes in, since it's just a demolition, it would only be required for what's for that scope of work.
I guess in my experience, when I see preliminary only, it implies that you're going to be adding more conditions to this in the future. You're saying you've listed everything potentially that you could ask for.
For the building
And
permit.
then you will edit it back to a site plan or whatever is deemed necessary to
Right.
hold a demo. Okay, thank you.
I've got one quick question. Now, after this structure's removed, and we've got that deck and the pad, and you were talking about the bluff restoration, is that something we'll see again, or is that,
Yeah, because it's coastal,
Oh.
those will come in.
it'll be up here in front of us again?
That's correct, yeah.
That's all I wanted to know.
I have one more question. Okay, so that's okay. So I have a question because Steve mentioned 4 walls. Is it the 4 walls of this surf room that are going to be left, or is it just the exterior walls that are
I would
next to
im-
the bluff?
I would imagine that back wall would probably remain, and you can kind of see through the window there that it's exposed, so that would probably come down also. I don't want to speak for the engineers per se, just because of, I don't know how stable it is.
But we are talking about retaining walls, not that side wall that
Right.
isn't holding anything up.
Correct.
Right, because that's kind of important to me that enough is removed so that it doesn't remain an attractive nuisance.
Of course, yeah. And like Anna said, it's that anything habitable about it, that feature would be removed.
Thank you.
Okay, well, my hope is to move on to public comment. We still have deliberations ahead of us. I'm opening public comment, and Dina, can you call our first speaker? It might be you. Oh, applicant, I'm so sorry. Please, yes, I didn't have this one in my script. You're the applicant, hi.
Good evening, Planning Commission and Chair Kevin Doyle. I'm Diane Laniger. It's been a while since I've been
Oh
here.
my God, Diane,
used to
geez,
work
it's
on the
been so
other
many
side.
years. For the record, Diane Laniger was my first interaction with city planning back almost 20 years ago now. Far out. Okay,
Life changes.
thank you for
In fact,
being
just so
here.
you know, I drove down 101 today, and it was
It's looking good, huh?
finally streetscape, a little bit.
A lot of people didn't think it'd happen.
Anyways, I am representing the property owner, who is Chad Robley. We've done a lot to get to this point, and for the most part, we're satisfied with all the conditions and the changes that have been put forward to you by staff. We just want to clarify a few things, just to make it clear for the record. I did get the opportunity to talk to Anna Colamusi, as well as Jim Knowlton, the city's geotechnical engineer, this evening to kind of clarify some of these things. We did have concerns with some of the drainage condition, primarily because we want to make it clear that the erosion control plan solely is there to clean the water that will drain to the street. There may still be some drainage right now that will go over the bluff. We're not proposing any kind of changes or grading that would alter that, but we are glad, and Jim Knowlton and I talked, we will go out and we'll do a site inspection prior to the demolition and after the demolition, just to ensure that we're doing all that we can to keep things going to the street and obviously cleaning that drainage at that time. So we're okay keeping that condition with the idea that we'll all be working together. And then the other condition, most of them we're fine with. And we never contested the fact that we need a building permit to do the demo. We know that's coming, and we'll meet the deadlines that you have with that. We did raise questions with a lot of the conditions that were in there because they're really related to new construction and not demolition. But as long as we all work together and they just say they're not applicable to you, then we're fine leaving them as is. The other thing I want to talk to is the demolition of the surf room. We had thought to just leave it completely there just so that the idea is not to disturb the bluff. But we're fine with working with you all to take the sidewalls and whatnot there. We did have concern, we've talked to, because we've had a contractor over to the site to get some bids for the demo, because we do want to get going. We know the neighbors want us to get going, and so we're doing that. Just in conversations with Jim Knowlton, we will discuss the best way to handle the surf room to ensure that we're not affecting the bluff stability as well as affecting any drainage that could compromise the bluff. So we're fine with the condition as changed as long as we all agree we're working together on that. So with that said, I'm available if you have any questions.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Diane. Anyone have anything? We'll go to public comment, and I'll
Okay.
leave it open, and we can
Thank you.
discuss it. Thank you.
Nice to see you.
So public comment is open, and
We
must
have no
speakers.
speakers.
We have
No
none?
speakers.
All right. Well then, yeah, no. It's,
He's part of the applicant.
oh,
Was that?
Are you?
No, I'm not with her.
Oh, okay.
yeah, come on up. Fill out one of these things. Do it after,
All right, it doesn't
as long as we
matter.
have a record of
So-
who speaks.
I lived for 11 years across the street from the house. Before that, Crazy Mary lived there. Would come to our house with her tits out, screaming she's going to kill our kids. The day her house burned down was the best day of our lives. Now you guys have been incompetent to do anything. To work backwards, what we want is instead of the timeline you proposed, we want you to issue the building tear down permit within 14 days and start demo within 30 days. I've got 4 small kids. There's masturbating bums in the house every day. They try to fling it on girls that walk by in the street. There's kids smoking on the roof. It's the biggest shithole in the world. If I didn't live there, like you guys and the owners, it's out of sight, out of mind. But even just sitting here, it's like the more is lost by indecision than wrong decision. You guys are talking about a wall, and what is this? Is this stability wall? Is there concrete behind it? It's a house that's been on fire for 12 hours in the rain with all of the water pouring down the bluff. All the water in the street of Neptune goes down to the corner of Grandview and Neptune, right onto the beach anyway. Everything you guys are saying is more of like beating around the fact of trying to make things not happen. You could fart and that house is gonna fall over, but no one will do it. You just need a dump truck and a demo crew, but everyone's delaying it as long as possible. And I've lived there for a long time. All my neighbors, everyone hates it. Everyone hates the city because of it. Everyone hates the new owners because of it. And we're getting really pissed. And so I don't even really care about the plans for how you're tearing it down or for what they're gonna build, but it's been a mess and a disaster. And like they say, you guys say things and we get letters like, we're gonna secure the property. So they put up a new little green fence. But the brick wall at the owner's house on the north side is a 4-foot pony wall. So you could build a 20-foot electrical fence and kids can just hop the pony wall and bums and go in it. And they probably prefer that you guys secure it more because then it makes it more private for everyone who's been living there the last 4 years and doing stuff in it. So I don't really care about the details of it or the incompetence of why it's still there. I wanted to read you guys some of the stuff you've all wrote, or maybe not you, but your colleagues, about what a nuisance it is and a health hazard and how you demanded it be torn down by December 15th, 2022, or else you were gonna take legal action against the new owner. And you listed 8 different laws of their breaking by leaving it there. And if they don't have it down by December 15th, 2022, all hell's going to break loose. And then we were all excited for that date. And now we're almost a year later and still nothing's happened. So it's just incompetence after incompetence. And so, yeah. And I still joke with people. I have a feeling that house is still going to be there in 10 years because no one can tear down a house that's been on fire for 12 hours. But I hope you guys make something happen. So thanks. Good luck.
Thank you. Yeah. Diane, do you want to have, oh, no, we have more speakers. Go ahead.
I just want to say I live right in front of the house, like directly across the street, and I'm an ER physician. I work at a level 1 trauma center, like watching these kids like crawl out of this house all the time. I've called the sheriff multiple times. The gate is like in and out of security. Like sometimes it's open, sometimes it's closed. Also called the sheriff about that. It's really distressing to like see young kids like in this structure that is clearly unsafe, and also like at all hours of the night, which is not really fun as somebody who lives right there. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Diane?
Yeah, thank you. And we're willing to submit earlier, if you like, for the building permit. I know we won't be able to pull, I would assume, till the appeal periods are done. And just so you know, the applicant has been contending that we shouldn't need a CDP. A lot of things that have taken so long to get to this point has been the fact that we needed a coastal development permit. And yes, you did have a previous property owner that wasn't, let's just say, wasn't able to get things to the finish line. But we have a property owner now, Mr. Robley, that wants to get things to the finish line, and he wants to construct. We are having discussions about what's allowed pursuant to legal nonconforming provisions in the code, and whether or not we need a CDP to construct and that type of thing, given the fire. But we'll have those discussions, but we'll do our best to move forward. And I know we were given 90 days once we submitted to pull the permit, but we're ready to pull the permit and do the demo. So we'll work with you folks. And I can give you my name and number if you want.
Our attorneys asked your guys for if you have even a demo crew lined up, and he said mind your own business.
Well, I didn't say that, so I don't know who you spoke to, but we are getting bids right now, just so you know.
I'll do it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. That's it. I'm going to close public comment. I'm going to start off, I remember this December 23rd, 2019 really, really well. I've been dialed into Leucadia very closely for 20-plus years, and I hesitated to drive up there. I know the former owner, your former neighbor, all too well, so I understand some of the issues there. This is the first time this has finally made it in front of us. I think the first owner kind of dragged her heels, and the new owner is pushing forward, and, you know, certainly bringing Ms. Laniger on board was a good step forward, because she knows how to get things done. And we want to see it done. I mean, honestly, it's an eyesore. It's, and I don't live there, and I really feel for your, I didn't know what's going on. I mean, you know, how can everyone know everything? But it's, I think staff perhaps maybe can come up with some better resources and like someone's more specific to call, but it's a problem that we all want gone, and I think it sounds like we will be getting rid of it. That's all I really have to say right now.
So what is, mine's not working, what is the timeline at the moment? So if the resolution has 90 days for them to process, certainly process it in 45 days or 30 days at that point. So Donna, can you walk through what the timeline is on the resolution?
They can submit a demolition permit, the building permit that's required, at any time with an at-risk letter. The reason for the at-risk letter is because there are appeal periods associated with this, both a local appeal period, which is 10 days, and then a coastal commission, because of the location on the bluff, an additional 10 days once they receive that. So our staff will make sure that we send out the notice to coastal commission so that the 10 days can start as soon as possible. Once those have concluded and nobody appeals it, they can pull a building permit. So as the applicant stated, they would be willing to submit sooner than that. They are able to at any point at this time, should this get approved. And we would review it during those appeal period times so that it's ready to issue, you know, at that future date. But we put a provision in here for the 30 days to ensure that it actually does occur, because we were concerned with any more delay in time. So that's why we added the condition. But if everybody's amenable to reduce that time frame, and that is, we are open to reducing that time frame.
So I have a question.
Someone's talking about 90 days, but you're saying it's 30 days, right? It's 20, it's 10 and 10 for the 2 appeal periods.
Jay,
And
can you
then
confirm where the
Yeah,
90 days?
days after
there's
that.
actually 2 conditions. The first condition is we would start counting 30 days after the end of the coastal commission appeal period, right? So they would have 30 days to submit the demo permit, and then it enters the process. But then the 90 days is upon issuance of the actual demolition permit. They have 90 days to break ground. That's written in 2 conditions.
And you could break ground on day one if you had everything set up.
That's correct.
So that's just
what we
the outside
aspire to.
limit.
Yes.
So 10 days from, I'm just trying to get a timeline for the gentleman. We approve, let's assume the resolution passes tonight, gets published, and then our clock would start 10 days from Monday. What's the timeline?
10 days starts tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Yes, ours are calendar days, and coastal commission is business days.
And they're not concurring, they're.
Yes, a notice needs to be sent out at the conclusion of our 10 days to coastal commission.
10 days starting tomorrow.
Correct.
Then when that period is up, coastal commission appeal, I don't know why, then coastal commission kicks in for its 10 days, right? So now we're 20 days from tomorrow.
Correct, I would say about 22 days, because coastal commission has to receive it and do their process.
And they
I can't-
acknowledge, and they also acknowledge when day 1 starts.
Is that public so that the gentleman knows that the coastal commission has approved it?
I believe they make that
Yeah,
public.
they provide us a letter saying we've received it. The 10-day appeal period would end on this date if we don't receive any appeals.
We post that in our development services folder so that the public can see that the coastal commission's approved it?
So the coastal commission does their own noticing requirements for their appeals.
Would the neighbor be noticed?
I don't want to speak on their exact process, but I'm happy to speak with them, to work with them to contact coastal commission together to make sure that we understand those dates.
So we're talking 10 days plus another, we're at 22 days, and that would be technically day 1 that the applicant can submit the.
Right.
No, they can submit concurrently, so they could submit tomorrow.
With the at-risk letter.
Right. They have 30 days. Okay.
And that is assuming that nobody appeals the decision.
Yeah, no appeal, 10, 22 days, if we're running concurrent, it could, we're putting the outside date of which they have to get their work done, but they can start anytime between the appeal period ending and X number of days.
Correct.
Correct? So worst case is it's 22 days plus the 90 in our resolution, right?
I'm sorry.
Somewhere between 22 and 90 when work actually begins on the project based on the applicant's process.
It's my understanding.
Assuming they've filed an at-risk letter.
Well, yeah, we can't, I don't know the appeal process, but we're just saying, I'm just trying to give you a timeline, and your neighbor is like, okay, we start tomorrow, tick, tick, tick. So we start, okay, we start tomorrow, coastal commission, 22 days, and then from that period, our resolution is 90 days, no later than 90 days, and then the applicant can somehow, if there's no appeal, go in between those 20, day 23.
No, it wasn't
and
working.
day January of next year.
And I mean, this is going to be the approval to demolish the building, which is what everyone wants, so I don't expect an appeal on this. But we still have to wait the 10 days.
4 years for this to happen.
Oh, yeah.
Concerned about the timeline, so trying to give them a timeline.
Yeah, so I got it. I think 23 days I thought was the soonest.
If I could speak, I just want to clarify, I would have to run it by my property owner to see if he's willing to submit the at-risk letter in order to submit earlier. I haven't had that discussion with them, so I don't want to presuppose what he might be willing to do. So,
Understood.
okay, thank you.
Okay, just briefly, I wanted to explain the reason I was talking so much about how much of that room is going to be demolished, is I want to make sure that there isn't any room left that looks attractive to people, because I've been by that property a lot and I know what it looks like. So my goal is really to have as much of that demolished so that there isn't anything there that people that will want to go into and hide in. So that's some of the reason, just so you guys know, that I was spending so much time on that.
It's good. Thank you, Chris. Any more discussion on this?
I do have a couple of questions. I wondered, when is the original foundation built? When was this project originally built? In 72 or before then?
I couldn't tell you that.
There are 2 units. One unit, I don't remember if it was the front or rear, was built in the 40s, and then the other one was built in the 60s.
The reason I'm asking is because they're leaving the foundation in place. So when this comes back as a new permit for construction, I'm not so certain that that foundation is sound. And will it be evaluated
I think
if
that's
it's left? I mean,
That's a future decision, though, right? All we're really trying to do is clear it. If they can use the foundation, they'll have to prove that they can reuse it.
so it will stay now, but it might not stay forever if it's determined it's unsound or needs.
Nothing
Well,
you
like-
decide tonight would allow, grant them and.
It's more like a big staple holding on to the bluff, just, we don't know. And we don't want to take it out and find out that the bluff's going to collapse without that holding it in place.
Right, it sounds like the water from the firefighters really did a number on the
That one's
bluff
going to be a mess.
already.
But this is step one, and this, I think, what everyone really wants. I'd entertain a motion.
Do we need to have a new resolution based on the language, or is a new resolution already provided to us?
If you accept the requested changes, then they would be by default included in the resolution that gets signed.
Sorry to stop you. Is anyone considering my proposal of 14 days and 30 instead of the month and 90?
It's not really up to us, unfortunately. I mean, we've got the rules to follow, their laws, and Coastal Commission has got teeth. And so,
So
to be clear, you do have the option, so he's requesting a shorter maximum time
Oh,
frame.
okay.
We have the option, if you want to shorten the time frame, you can. But
Just where if the permit gets issued, they have to start down in 30 days, they don't get 90.
Well, again, that's something, a discussion to have with our applicant. Diane, I don't know. I mean, I think it's, I know Diane, and I feel that, I remember the last owner of this property, I know why she dragged her heels.
so
I don't-
there was a motion and a second.
Did we have a motion in a
No,
second?
it was not?
I don't
Okay.
think we did.
Very good, sorry.
Would you like to see the conditions of approval on the screen to see
Yeah.
which ones he's referring to understand them?
I think that would be,
Yes.
let's pull them up again.
Well, I'll move to approve the demolition with the conditions that we have from staff.
Okay, do you want to see, they're about to pull them up on screen again, so we have a motion, we're waiting a second. I think we're going to have something on screen.
All right. This right here is the strikeout SCA 1 would be replaced by that condition shown on the PowerPoint where we talked about the superstructure. We would use that language as the new SCA 1.
I'm sorry, Jay, do you mind, we're just going to focus on the 30-day
Oh, I'm
condition of
sorry,
approval as
okay.
well as the 90-day. So we're just going to,
Okay, so numbers 3 and 4 right here. Number 3, property owner shall submit a building permit application to authorize demolition of the fire-destroyed structure and surface cleanup of the property within 30 calendar days of the final approval, including conclusion of all appeal periods. Failure to apply for a building permit application shall be a violation of the CDP. And then number 4, upon building permit approval, property owner shall initiate work pursuant to the building permit within 90 calendar days of the building permit issuance. Failure to initiate work shall be a violation of the CDP.
If I may, I could suggest for item 4, if you want to change it to 60 days. I know that's not going to make the neighbors happy, but I'm concerned to make it such a short time in case we have any problems lining up a contractor, that's all. Obviously, once we submit for the building permit, and we are having conversations with contractors, but depending upon all the conditions. And additionally, I've already talked to Jim Knowlton. We'll be glad to go out to the site next week and discuss everything related to things. And we can get the application submitted as soon as possible, as long as the property owner is willing to submit the, what did you call it again, Anna?
At risk.
At-risk letter.
Yeah, the at-risk letter,
And
yeah.
all joking aside, I have 2 contractors that'll do it within 2 weeks.
Okay, so if you want to give me those names,
Done, yeah.
I'll let you write down the names and numbers.
Ricardo and Kale. Kale's office is right there.
Yep. Yeah, we really kind of shouldn't be having side conversations. All this being recorded and going into the minutes, and everything you say is not really being heard or recorded. So it's a little confusing. We hear you.
I'd like to make a motion to close the public comment portion of the
Yeah,
hearing, and I'd like to make a motion to approve the staff report as written and as amended lately.
Well,
Susan.
first off, I'm going to close public comment. I don't think we need a motion for that. And
Now, I'll second
Susan already-
Susan's motion.
so, okay, we have a motion and a second. And this included the conditions. We're not changing anything. Is that what I understand? Or are we changing 30 or 90 to 60?
I'd like to make a motion that we change the 90 to 60.
We have too many motions out here right now.
What's the motion on the board? I'll vote against it.
No,
We have asked for a friendly amendment.
You can have discussion after the motion has been.
Oh, yeah, of course we can.
Discuss. I think the applicant has done nothing but show good faith. They're a new owner, and they're trying to get something done. They've accommodated. I have every faith that they're moving forward. So I understand the one person's frustration with the length of this process, but the applicant seems to be doing everything they can to move through this process. So I think it's reasonable, and it sounds like they're eager to
Please, sir.
move forward when they can.
I would also support shortening to 60 days. I do think that there isn't anything preventing the applicant from already working to try to secure somebody to demo the property. And they have the additional time, the 22 days or the first 30 days, and then plus the 60 days, that is 90 days. So I would support a motion to shorten it to 60 days.
I would accept that as a friendly amendment. Who made the motion? That's Susan. It's up to you.
I could amend it
Cool.
to include shortening it to 60 days.
Thank you. And I think I'm in agreement. I think this is a motivated owner. It's like, I'm sure that property, I didn't check it up, but I know it was expensive, and it's burning money sitting there as a burnt-out wreck. It's a new owner. I think it's going to push forward. I know the people involved, and I'm hoping maybe after we can discuss, is there something we can talk about, additional enforcement issues, get some people out there?
I'll speak with our code enforcement about the statements tonight.
Thank you, Anna.
And I'm happy, if you would like to get my information about Coastal Commission, you can ask Dina for it. I'm happy to speak with you after.
We think we call the question. We've got a
So
motion and
I
a
think we have a
second.
motion, but I don't think Commissioner Dalton seconded that, because it,
Did he not second
I
properly?
did not second that. Someone else can second that.
I'll second it with the shortening to 60 days.
Let's see where we're at.
The vote on the table is for the 60 days.
All right, motion passes unanimously. Let's get this done now. It's still early. We'll just plow right in. Take the rest of you people here might be here for item number 8. Give me just a moment. Thank you. All right. Well, now, we're moving on to our regular agenda, item 8A. This is the Sage Canyon Apartments at empty lot on Sage Canyon Drive. This is case number multi 3817-2020. It's a public hearing to consider a density bonus, design review permit, coastal development permit, and a certificate of compliance for the construction of a multifamily residential development consisting of 145 residential apartments, of which 29 will be low income. Do we have any disclosures this evening? No? I'll disclose. I've been out there several times now and climbing up. Did anyone see the Pink Angel? Yes. You know what I'm talking about.
I did a drive-by.
Yeah, it's, but I haven't spoken to anyone, and that's about it for me. I think we'll move on to us.
I did do a drive-by too. But
Yeah.
didn't walk onto the property.
I think 50,000 people a day do a drive-by of that space. So I'm going to go to a staff report presented by our principal planner, Andrew Maynard.
Thank you very much, Chair, Commission, Public. This is the Sage Canyon Apartments project. It's located on Sage Canyon and South El Camino, right on the corner. It's identified in red, and it's a remainder parcel. The surrounding community, you have single-family residential to the north and east, which is all planned residential development. To the south, you have existing church use, and then to the west, you have existing condos, and then you have commercial uses just to the north of that. You can see an overall picture of the site on the upper left from El Camino and above. On the lower left, you see kind of the entrance to Sage Canyon. On the upper right, you see kind of the elevation difference, but also you see the westerly view to Pacific Pines across the street. In the lower right, you have Lux Canyon, which is a creek and wetland, and that's the existing head wall with, you can see, existing invasives within the wetland. This was identified as one of our housing element sites, known as Site AD1, also known as the Sage Canyon property. Overall, it was designed to meet the overall regional housing needs assessment for the city of Encinitas and was designed as a multifamily project. That housing element was approved as part of our 6th housing element cycle on July 13th, 2021. The overall zoning for the site is residential 30. It's also located in the special study overlay zone, hillside inland bluff overlay zone, cultural natural resources overlay zone, and also the coastal appeal overlay zone. Overall, it includes a request for a density bonus application. The 3 permits are a design review permit, a certificate of compliance, and a coastal development permit. This project is by right, with no subdivision proposed, and will provide 20% affordable housing.
Testing.
It's also exempt per section 15061B for the 3 for the legalization of the remainder parcel. And the kind of last action and request for the Planning Commission tonight is a recommendation for the reduction of street improvements due to environmental constraints on site. Overall, the project was reviewed per our municipal code development standards, our objective design guidelines, and overall objective general plan standards. It was also reviewed per density bonus law and government code section 65913.4, which states that local jurisdictions' discretion on housing element projects is limited to only objective design standards. The overall project includes 145 multifamily residential units. That's over 2 buildings, over a podium with 2 underground parking garages, 1 lower and 1 upper. Overall, it includes 116 market rate units and 29 low-income units. And within building 1, there's a leasing area. It also includes a variety of other community uses, so like a multi-purpose room, gym, pool, decks, and social gathering spaces. And then the other components are grading and landscaping on site. Access to the site is, if you're going northbound or southbound, is via El Camino Real. You go onto Sage Canyon Drive and then enter the site where the red arrow is. It was designed that way for a couple of reasons. One, Pacific Canyon project, which was previously approved, also had the same access. The other reason is the wetlands. It runs along that entire westerly portion of the property. There's also a 100-foot public drainage easement that also runs along that same side, and then also steep slopes. Overall, the access you can see in the upper right picture. It's a one-way in, one-way out to the basement garage. So you see on the right, then the left. And then there's an upper podium level to go towards the podium and some of the mini pieces, and then also residential units. It does include the density bonus request. However, the applicant's not utilizing any additional density bonus units. As indicated, it's 145 units with 116 market rate and 29 low affordable units. As indicated, it's providing the 20% affordable units. And of those, 16 would be inclusionary, so those would be in perpetuity, and then 13 density bonus, and those would be restricted for 55 years. Just to note, low-income units are restricted to 80% AMI, so that's the annual income for any qualifying tenants. And then the rental rates would be restricted to 60% AMI. Overall, the location of the units are dispersed throughout the entire community. All units would have the same amenities and features and quality between the market rate and affordable units. As part of the density bonus, the applicant can propose both concessions and waivers. No concessions are proposed with this project. Waivers, just to note, are unlimited, and there's two proposals. One is for encroachments into natural steep slopes. Within our hillside inland bluff overlay zone, you're allowed encroachment up to 10%. The applicant's proposing 3.8% above that. And then also additional waiver for building height. So the first waiver would be the steep slope encroachments as I identified. You can see identified as A, B, C, and D. Those would be the encroachment areas. Overall, that's been limited to the extent feasible with all the constraints on site. That's for grading, BMPs, fire buffer areas, and other kind of limited areas. Overall, just under the strict application, without this waiver, the project would lose 15 dwelling units. The second waiver is for building height. So if you look in the upper left picture, that's building 1. You would lose essentially the upper story and then mechanical screening. For building 2, it's limited really just to the very south piece of that building, and that would be for, again, that upper story. Without the waiver, the project would lose 36 dwelling units. Overall, the project complies with all R30 standards, with the exception of height, as identified for density bonus. For parking, if the applicant was utilizing just density bonus standards, it would require 173 required spaces. They're proposing 296 based on our off-street design manual to account for occupancy and also guest parking so it doesn't spill over to the adjacent neighborhood. Traffic was analyzed as part of the project. A traffic analysis was done by Chen Ryan and was reviewed by our traffic engineering division as well as CIP division. As part of that, it complies with all the municipal code standards. Based on the study, it would generate 170 average daily trips. And as part of our objective general plan standards, we analyzed policy 1.3. You see the intersections analyzed, which are consistent with our housing element and is consistent with this provision. Overall, the study did identify on Sage and El Camino Real there would be a slight improvement, and that's due to a thoroughfare, which would be on the left-hand turn. You could do a left or go straight, or also the delineated right-hand turn, and that overall help capacity. Overall, as I indicated, there's wetlands along the full westerly side, identifying kind of the multi-colors. In the northern portion, there's disturbed wetlands, and then full kind of wetlands, and also the channel. The red delineates the public drainage easement, which is 100 feet, which was identified per a previous map, not the map that created this lot, and then the 33 lots adjacent to it. Overall, the applicant's proposing a 10 to 40-foot buffer along the northerly portion adjacent to the wetland, and then along the southerlies and the 70s and 80s range. The northerly was reduced to accommodate a BMP basin. Overall, this would benefit the wetland and for drainage purposes from the development, and then also sedimentation into the channel. Overall, these areas on the left-hand side that I'm identifying would be placed in an open space easement. Also, on the right-hand side, in kind of the bluish color, that's coastal sage scrub, and that would also be preserved in open space easement. Any mitigation on site, so that would be coastal sage and other features. There would be a land manager, and that would be managed in perpetuity through that third party. Next component of the project is design review. So that includes grading and walls. Overall, highest portion of fill would be 14 feet, and then outside the basement area would be 16 feet, which would be subject to design review. Anything within the basement is not subject to design review, but it's approximately 20 to 32 feet with the underground parking garages. Overall, the walls and grading are consistent with our design guidelines. As you see in the upper left-hand picture, the tallest portion of that wall would be approximately 19 feet, and it steps up as you go to steps down and then steps down again as you're heading towards the building. It would be earth tone color and then also be screened with vegetation. As you continue kind of on the left on the photographs, there's basement walls immediately adjacent to the wetland. Those would be, there would be trellises attached to the basement walls just for screening purposes and with the vegetation. And then as you go to the very south portion, there would be a wall, kind of natural color with the glass feature for where the pool is located. The tallest walls would be on the very back side of the property, and those would be soil nail walls. The intention with that was to preserve the environmental areas as much as possible. And by doing this, also, they're proposing overall enhanced walls. The shotcrete would have kind of a natural earth tone appearance, and then also would be sculpted and look like natural rock. Next feature of the project would be landscaping. So overall, the project's proposing 167 trees, and then also in addition to that, shrubs, plants, and ground cover in compliance with all landscaping standards. Overall, the proposed landscaping, 87% of that would be native landscaping. Our overall threshold typically is 50%. In addition to that, the applicant satisfies all parking requirements for landscaping. To highlight kind of the entrance to the project, there would be enhanced hardscaping, as you see in the upper left-hand picture, and then also for pedestrian crossings proposed with enhanced pavers. Overall, the project is consistent with all private and common open space requirements for the R30 overlay zone. As you see in the lower picture, you see pools, there's a large deck, you can see kind of the outdoor courtyards, gathering spaces. There would be bike racks in the kind of lower hand next to building 1. In the upper right picture, that would be a large kind of outdoor courtyard for residents. Next component of the design review would be the actual facade. So the project complies with all objective design standards and includes offsetting colors, materials, and roof lines. It also complies with the facade wall requirements for the R30 overlay zone. This is a visual simulation from Sage Canyon Drive. And then as we're going around, this is the westerly view from El Camino Real, and also continues those offsetting planes and architectural elements. This is the view if you're heading southbound down El Camino Real, the visual simulation of the project. And then on the very southwest corner of the project, this is building on the right-hand side, that's building 2, kind of that south corner, and then building 1 on that left-hand side. You can't see the pool and large deck. It's set down below the level of the street, and it'll be screened by the proposed vegetation adjacent to the buildings. This is overall just visual simulation. There's a large grade difference between this property and the upper properties. And this is the overall visual simulation looking across. Next component of the project is the certificate of compliance. So this was a requirement to the previous map with the 3 homes that are currently built out there. The condition requires to take this action to formally legalize the lot. Overall, the applicant has submitted the certificate of compliance. It's as part of the attachment, and it complies with all the lot size, lot width, and depth standards. Next component of the project is the coastal development permit. Overall, the project complies with all Encinitas municipal code standards and the general plan, and is in compliance with the local coastal program. The last component of the project is the reduction of public improvements. So this would be located on El Camino Real. In the upper right-hand picture, that's the typical for our road standards. So that would, from the center line, to require 3 vehicular lanes, it require a 10-foot bike lane, and then additional 10 feet of area, which would be a parkway, and then also the sidewalk. As part of our road standards, Table 4 within Section 4.6 allows for a modification of these road standards. The process to do that would be ultimately a recommendation from Planning Commission and then approval by the City Council. Section 1.3 of the road standards allows exceptions due to overriding unmitigable environmental considerations, the identification of significant environmental features, or where the application of the standards to a specific situation results in impractical or unreasonable hardship, and it only needs to meet one of those standards. Overall, very important to staff as we were evaluating the application is to ensure we still have mobility and safe access to and from the site and per our local coastal program. As part of that, we worked with the applicant, and what they're proposing is 2 vehicular lanes with a deceleration lane. They're proposing, as part of the bicycle lane with a 3-foot buffer. The sidewalk, instead of 5 feet, would be 4.5 feet, and then there would be a wall adjacent to that just due to the slopes within the right-of-way. This is looking from the plan view, kind of showing those improvements. So the red would be a 4-foot wide sidewalk. The yellow would be the bike lane, and then the bike buffer, and you see the deceleration lane. Overall, the overall city reviewed the project, and based on the reduction of improvements, there would be the need for taller and specialized retaining walls. There's issues with liquefaction and grading, and also the grading would require a full shift of the wetland east. Overall, based on this, staff's recommending approval or having the commission recommend approval of these reduced improvements. Staff did work with the Coastal Commission, also environmental agencies for almost a year and a half, going from kind of full width standards to what you see before you tonight. On May 14th, 2021, there was a citizen participation meeting from 6 to 8 p.m. with 21 members of the public. Overall, you see the issues kind of identified ranging from construction concerns to traffic and vehicular speeds, queuing, the intersection, and then overall just density, height, and open space and noise concerns. Also, staff forwarded additional correspondence we received after the legal notice for your review. Overall, this is as I indicated, it's a by right project. However, we did analyze technical studies based on our general plan, municipal code, and the environmental assessment that was done as part of the housing element. All these attachments are in your staff report, and we have all disciplines here on staff, and then experts from the applicant as well to answer any questions. As I indicated, the project is by right, so it provides 20% lower income affordable units, does not require a subdivision, and overall, we can only require a design review permit, and it's statutory exempt from CEQA per section 65583.2 H and I. Also, for the legalization of the remainder lot related to map 13653, based on just that action, it would not have a significant impact on the environment. Staff's recommendation is to approve the project based on all the permits with the draft conditions of approval. We also recommend approval for the reduction of the public improvements and also adopt the CEQA findings. And I'm available for any questions you have. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Andrew. I'm going to lead off. I got a couple of questions of clarification, and let's try and keep it to that. It's easy to drift into deliberation on this one. First one, Sage Canyon Drive, is that a public road? Or is it public and private? Because there's a gate. Sage Canyon is the roundabout plus the road that goes up past the gate.
It is a public road, and just to clarify, that actually is not a roundabout, even though it has the appearance of it with the decorative paving and whatnot.
Anticipated my question. Thank you. I'm not sure. I spent a little bit of time watching. Some people went around it and some people did not. The next one was Lux Canyon Creek. Is that a natural or a man-made? How on earth did that happen? Is that something that was just here and we built the city around it, or because it looks in many places very much man-made?
I think there's features, I think it was natural. There's been features, obviously, with the crossing with Sage Canyon Drive when the development went in kind of the early 2000s.
Because it's just like straight as an arrow.
Yeah, and also, as I indicated, there is prior to kind of city incorporation, it was designated as a public drainage easement, so there's little components of both of that.
Okay, thank you. Another one, this was deemed submitted, October 26, 2020? So the inclusionary ordinance, the new version of that was not passed at the time, so they're using a prior version, is that correct?
That's correct.
The objective design standards, I know we've used, I think, the ones based from our old standards, is that also?
Correct, based on the SB 330 that was submitted as part of the project, it's subject to the previous design review standards.
Okay, and so anything else, the density bonus, they were here for that. Yeah, one last question, there's something in here about invasive plants that would be removed. And I'm like looking down at the drainage, what do we call it, Lux Canyon Creek. And it's like a mess of ice plant and castor bean and forget pampas grass. Are they gonna basically scraping it and replanting again? What's the plan there? I couldn't quite figure that out.
So the landscape plan does identify the landscaping that would be placed. There would be, some of the invasives would be removed. There'd be no grading or that type of operation, just because it could impact the wetlands and cause mitigation or other long-term impacts to the wetlands.
Okay, well, maybe that's something I'll dig in a little bit later when we talk to the applicant. I want to find out what their plan is. That's all the questions I have for now. Thank you, Andrew. Anyone else? No?
No, I have one.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so just in reading some of the letters that were submitted from the public, one of the suggestions was moving the driveway to the south end of I guess it's the southwest end of the project. And was the reason that was, I'm, in reading your responses and everything like that, it looks like that was considered, but it was determined that couldn't be done because of the environmental issues at the south end?
It was never a proposal of the project, but just based on input from the environmental agencies with the public improvements. They were not in support of that. Coastal Commission also was not in support of even the full widening of the public improvements as well. So I wouldn't see that as really a feasible option based on all those constraints.
Okay, thank you.
Bob?
Thank you, Chris. All right, so Plan B, can you pull up the site map again, showing I guess the plan that showed patios? I guess I wasn't quite sure which visual it was. It was basically an oblique site map, cartoon version showing the buildings 1 and 2 as part of your presentation.
Was
Yeah,
this like-
so behind building 1 are those patios?
There's private patios. Building 2 is the one in the upper right,
Oh, okay.
and it's actually a lower courtyard.
All right. On your visual looking down from the buildings up of the housing down to the project. I think that was another picture with the superimposed. So looking down on the project from the houses above. You pull that one up.
Was it a slide?
No, it's a regular picture, and the building was superimposed.
Oh, okay.
So you're looking down from the houses above, down to the site, so you're looking at the roofs. Okay, that one. Where are the solar panels?
So it's not showing the visual simulation. The project is conditioned to provide full solar for the project.
Right, 145 kilowatt. So that's not showing here?
It's not shown in the simulation now.
Okay. And you're talking about on moving, so the picture where you had the wetland showing that it was going to be moved, it was very detailed, showed the bike lane and it showed the tuck under. Sorry, my double whacking. Okay, that one. So can you highlight the area on the north where they're asking for a waiver? On the buffer for the northern is part of their waivers, waiver number 1, I believe it was. Can you highlight that area where the buffer is that they're asking for?
Oh,
I couldn't quite tell from this drawing.
it would be in this upper section right here.
Okay,
So this is the 40-foot, the smallest would be the 10-foot. And then if you see kind of the squiggly line that going down here, this full area is the BMP basin.
right. So they're actually moving, someone is going to be moving the wetland inland or to the east from its current path?
The wetland's not moving as a result of this project. So that's disturbed. There's disturbed wetlands kind of in this upper piece.
Right.
There's the wall proposed over here. It's a reduced buffer, but the actual physical channel itself is staying the same as it currently exists today.
Oh, I thought you said that it was going to be approved by Coastal Commission and the developer was responsible for moving the wetland. Did I misunderstand that?
Yeah, so when we're looking at the full improvements, if you had to do that, it wouldn't just be that upper northern portion. It would be that full channel that goes all the way down would have to shift to the east. There'd be basically be a full regrading of that full channel going kind of north to south along that westerly side of the property.
Okay, so that's one of the waivers that they're asking for, is not to have to do that.
It's not so much a waiver, it would be for the public road standards, reducing the public road standards as a result of that, kind of that environmental constraint.
And then lastly, the other commissioner mentioned the design standards were from 2020, the inclusionary housing was from 2020, yet the developer is benefiting from the housing element that was passed in 2021. So I'm a little confused on why the benefit of the element for the density bonus, but yet they're having to abide by a permit application that was 12 months earlier that requires them to use different design standards.
Well, they filed an SB 330 application, and that SB 330 application locks in all the development standards at the time.
Prior to the housing element giving them R30.
Right.
Okay.
I think didn't we already have them on the previous housing element? Or,
There may have been, but if the housing element wasn't passed, then it really was just a bunch of noise. So don't we go by the housing element having passed, then that's what the standard is.
The housing element was adopted, and then there was another update after that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
anything else?
Yeah, just briefly, can you show me where the other public recreation areas are besides the pool?
All the areas highlighted in orange in both images. So you have the pool area on the lower section. There's open courtyards with benches, amenities around the upper podium area. And on the back side, you also have this large courtyard. There's also a courtyard over here. And there's also private balconies within the units too itself. You're welcome.
either to staff or it could be to the applicant. It has to do with the height of the building and the two parking structures underneath.
I don't want to ask the applicant. They're about to give a presentation.
All right. Want me to wait then? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think
That's fine.
that'll be best. I'm going to move on. I'm going to open public comment before I call the applicant. I always get confused in that one. The applicant, would you want to, are you? You're Andrew, right? Austin, sorry. Sorry.
Yeah. Do we have the pointer?
Do
Okay,
you have
perfect.
10 minutes on the timer?
Yeah, that's plenty of time.
Yeah.
So my name's Austin Wormers. I'm the owner representative of the Sage Canyon Apartment Project. I'd like to thank the commissioners tonight for your respectful consideration of the project approval. A little bit about our company and our family. Wormers is a family-owned and operated company. I've been a part of the San Diego community now for 3 generations. I care deeply about preserving what makes Encinitas such a special place we all call home. Wormers is not a traditional builder and developer. We buy, we build, and we hold all of our projects long-term. At Wormers, we strive to build projects that make the community a better place to live, and I believe the Sage Canyon project will do so. To present the details of the project tonight, I'm going to hand it over to the project manager, Patrick.
Thank you, Austin. Thank you, city staff and planning commissioners. My name is Patrick Zabraki, and I'm the project manager for the Sage Canyon Apartments project. Now, as an overview, the project site is located in the south central portion of the city, which is in the new Encinitas community area. It's located at the southeastern corner of the El Camino Real and Sage Canyon Drive intersection. The existing site is undeveloped and approximately 5.23 total acres. The site is conveniently located along a major corridor, making for easy access to the Encinitas Village Shopping Center, which is just over a mile to the north, and you can even bike or drive to the beach in only 3 short miles. The property is no stranger to the city of Encinitas, as it was assessed and selected as a candidate site in the city's 2021 Housing Element Update, known in that document as Site AD1. It was designated a rezone to allow for 30 units to the acre, which means that any developer can utilize state density bonus law for a 50% density bonus and potentially build up to 235 units. And additionally, I'd like to add that there's a current assembly bill awaiting the governor's signature. That would be AB 1287, which could allow for this site to be developed up to 275 total units. However, we are here tonight seeking approval of a 145-unit apartment project. Now, out of those 145 units, 29 will be reserved for residents of low income. Is this working here? And that will help us comply with our state density bonus law and the inclusionary housing requirements. Now, we propose to include 1 and 2 unit bedrooms that range in size from 662 to 1,136 square feet. We're complying with the city's parking code without requesting a waiver and providing a total of 296 spaces. Also, it's important to us to preserve as much of the native habitat on site as we could, so we were able to include 1.2 acres that will be preserved in perpetuity. Now, we heard from the community about the importance of traffic and safety along El Camino Real. The intersection for the site entrance is currently experiencing a below standard level of service with the existing condition. With the project approval, we are proposing to include several factors that will improve that by doing things like the striping right along Sage Canyon Drive to define the left and the right turn lanes, removal of a portion of the El Camino Real median striping to help delineate that intersection, addition of turn arrows in the median, installation of north and southbound, or signage for the north and southbound traffic, expansion of pedestrian facilities, which will include a bike lane, a safety buffer, construction of a new sidewalk, along the project frontage, and also a 150-foot deceleration lane. These much-needed improvements will raise the intersection's level of service to an acceptable level. Now, since the site has undergone substantial review and scrutiny by the city and the public as an approved site in the housing element, we're only required to obtain 2 permits: the design review permit and the coastal development permit. As previously detailed by city staff, the project complies with the design review regulations and the LCP policies. And in exchange for providing 20% affordable units, state law allows an unlimited number of waivers from certain design standards. We're only requesting 2 waivers. One is from that steep slope encroachment regulation, which we just barely exceed. And the second is building height, in which certain areas we go above because we designed the project to adapt to the natural topography of the site. Now, when it comes to the steep slopes, as you saw in the previous graphic and in this right here, I'll show, you can see that there's lots of steep slopes that we have to encounter, and this picture on the right gives a good kind of depiction of what's out there today. And now regarding the building height limit, I've included the northern elevation, which if you look at the red line, that depicts the 35-foot height limit. And on the left-hand side, as you can see, we are well below that height limit, but as you kind of go down the hillside to the right, you can kind of, this depicts where in the portion of the project that does go above it. And to kind of help put it into context a little bit, we do have the simulation here on the left, which you can see on the right side of that, that's the high point of the building, but it also puts it into context with the hill behind it. Yeah, I'm having some trouble here with the clicker, but let's go back to that one. Yeah, and this simulation here, as you saw in Andrew's presentation as well, that does kind of give you an idea from our neighbors to the east that we're 300 feet away and 70 feet below them, and that's going to be kind of the view from that area. Now, I've also included this slide to demonstrate how fairly tucked away the project is from public view. And as that last image showed, we're not only 300 feet away and 70 feet below our eastern neighbors, but we're also 200 feet away from our neighbors to the north. And we have a setback from El Camino Real of approximately 125 feet. Now, I would also like to add that we did design the building into 3 sections as a way to provide visual relief while driving north and southbound on El Camino Real, instead of having just a really big block of a building. And there are plenty of other examples of projects that are built into the hillsides of Encinitas. You may be familiar with the Maria Resort at La Casa and PCH, or the Best Western along Encinitas Boulevard, and more recently, the Moonlight Apartments project that was approved by Planning Commission in June. And when it comes to the actual architecture of our project, it can be described as California contemporary, which is defined by clean lines, high-quality materials, and we've got neutral color tones that blend with the natural color palette of the surrounding hillsides. The building will have lots of residential, common, and landscaped areas, as you can see here, with high-quality amenities we know our residents are going to be excited for, including a fitness center, indoor community area, a large open space promenade, and an interactive community courtyard with features such as barbecues, fire pits, gathering areas, and a community pool and jacuzzi. And in addition to just the sticks and bricks, the Sage Canyon project will enhance the community through providing high-quality housing opportunities that are also environmentally friendly. And as you can see here, we've packed the project with a bunch of green features with the goal of minimizing our environmental footprint for the benefit of future generations. Now, as you consider your decision for this project, I request that you don't only just look at the merits of the project itself, but also consider the times that we're in. I think it's easy to say that the housing crisis has touched us all in some way, and housing has gotten to an extreme situation. And there isn't just one solution to the problem. However, approving projects that provide more housing in the right places, like the Sage Canyon Apartments, will incrementally help. Now, lastly, I would like to point out that the units from the Sage Canyon Apartments will contribute to the city meeting its state housing requirements. But also, it's very important to consider that the city of Encinitas and its residents have been planning for this type of project in this location for many years, and through the preparation and adoption of several long-range planning documents. And as you heard from the city staff's report presentation, the Sage Canyon project is consistent with those planning documents and will help the city achieve its established housing goals and make the city of Encinitas a better place to live. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Fantastic, thanks. Do you have any questions while we got them here? We can call them back if need be. If it's all right with you, let's move on to public comment, and we'll give you guys a chance to rebut.
We have 4 speakers this evening.
4 speakers?
Yep.
Okay.
And first up is Molly Bowen.
Hi, thank you so much for listening to us tonight. My name is Molly, and this is my daughter. I have 3 daughters. We've been living in Sage Canyon for 10 years, and we chose the neighborhood because it is safe and family-friendly. When we first bought the house, it was zoned for 10 homes next to us to be built. I never would have bought if I had known that the zoning was going to be changed. So I hope all of you have read the emails and letters over the past years. If you have, then you understand that our Sage Canyon families, our children, our pets are being forced into a dangerous situation. This is about our safety. We object to the threats this enormous project represents. There will be 145 apartments with at least 50 to 60 miles per hour traffic. There are 33 residents and no off-site parking. Instead, parking is being eliminated on our side of El Camino Real with no safe way to cross the speeding traffic. Our safety is being ignored. This Sage Canyon apartment project needs its own entrance onto El Camino Real. We are asking to add a traffic light that will enable pedestrians to cross El Camino Real safely and vehicles to enter and exit El Camino Real safely. This could end in tragedy and possible expensive, unnecessary liability for the city of Encinitas. It's plain for all to see that the Sage Canyon apartment proposal is lacking safety considerations. The solution is to require the developer to relocate the entrance to the apartments and add a traffic light for pedestrians. This is about our safety and lives of our Sage Canyon families. We're relying on you to keep us safe. Thank you for hearing our case and allowing me to speak. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next we have Larry Buck.
Hi, my name is Larry Buck. My wife and I live on Sage Canyon Drive. Actually, we closed escrow in May 2000. I'll be brief regarding the possible acceptance of this 145-unit apartment project proposal. We in Sage Canyon have serious concerns for the safety of our families. We feel our safety is under assault, and at no time have I heard during this discussion the safety of Sage Canyon's families and Sage Canyon neighborhood addressed. It's kind of like we're there, but we're ignored. And you know, adding 145 units, emptying them into our cul-de-sac is going to have an enormous impact. And the city of Encinitas has signed on to Vision Zero, and the goal for that is 0 fatalities by 2028. We just had a fatality up the street. Profit incentive motives motivates developers to commission expensive traffic studies and other types of studies. Expert witness type studies are paid for by developers and thus are compromised and fraught with bias. Paid experts to know exactly what is expected of them. Therefore, the Planning Commission should take that into consideration when looking at these studies, and you probably do. Studies are expensive, however, developers are profit motivated, whereas families must pull money from stressed family budgets just to defend themselves. Our budgets are stretched thin by inflation and unforeseens. For many of us, a private study, which you may require, is not affordable. But then we can't just stand aside, can we? So folks like me instead write letters, talk, email our concerns pleading for reason, for fairness regarding our safety issues, and we plead for compassion. But can't we just use our own good sense on issues that are apparent to the naked eye and don't need studies to show the seriousness of the danger? Crossing El Camino Real is just one of those issues we face. It's difficult not to smile when I hear watchful moms instructing their children on the finer points of crossing the street. You hear chastising, "You didn't look both ways." That's scary. And mothers don't require studies. Mothers address safety head on, addressing what definitely is not safe, because danger can be recognized when it's staring us right in the face. Danger can be self-evident if one just looks. No study is needed. Obviously, developers will have a preference to buy studies that support their goals rather than let's all just use our brains, and that's telling. More traffic means more safety issues. There's already been traffic accidents at our intersections and one recent fatality up the street when a young man on an e-bike was tragically killed. Fires. We all fear that a bottleneck at our gate caused by the additional 145 unit apartments emptying under a small cul-de-sac will trap our families where everyone is trying to flee down the street during a fire evacuation. I hear that from everybody on our street. Please read my emails and letters. I've spelled out and elaborated on the issues as I've seen them. The solution is moving to the project's entrance and installing a traffic light. 2 smart changes needed to mitigate the assault on our safety down the south end of El Camino Real. Regarding your acceptance or denial of the Sage Canyon proposals and your recommendation, the only way to assure is to engineer and design for safety as stated in Vision Zero. Vision Zero is a worthy effort. And if it should be that this planning, sorry?
Get to the end. We're past our time.
This is the end.
We've read your, but no, go on. Finish
Okay.
it. Finish
And
your
if
thought.
it should be that this planning commission or representatives of the city of Encinitas should deem our need for safety to be impractical or unachievable, then the project must be denied because by right designation does not and cannot override the safety of others. Please let your conscience be your guide on your decisions, and thank you for the opportunity to speak here.
Thank you, Larry.
Our next speaker is Carrie Webenberger.
That was pretty close. I don't know who said that, but it's Carrie Weisenberger. So I'm another one of the residents of Sage Canyon. And I'm afraid I might cry tonight, so bear with me. I just had my first grandson. He's 5 months old, and he's the delight of my life. I get to see him, in fact, watch him a couple of times a week, and staring into his eyes, full of hope and promise. But I'm afraid. I'm afraid for him when he's at my house. So the Sage Canyon area is 100% surrounded by vegetation. We cut it back enough to protect our community from fire, but we are 100% surrounded on all sides. All we have is the cul-de-sac going in and out. It's the only way in and out. So I looked at the evacuation study, and I wanted to determine for myself how valid it is. And there's a couple of things in it that cause me concern. One says the assumption is 2.26 vehicles for Sage Canyon, but only 1.5 vehicles for the apartments. I don't understand how that can make sense. It also says that 503 vehicles an hour can come out of that entrance. That's 7 seconds a car. I've sat there for several minutes during rush hour. You can't get out in 7 seconds all the time. Maybe in the middle of the night when there's nobody there, but not during rush hour in 50, 60, 70, 80 mile an hour traffic screaming down El Camino Real. So I think there's some flaws in that study. Even with the flaws, I looked at the delay and what's it going to take to get all the vehicles out based on those assumptions. And it says right now, without those apartments, it's 9 minutes. It's going to be 34 minutes based on a flawed study. I think it's going to be a lot worse than that. I can't imagine taking my 5-month-old grandson out and sitting in lined up cars for 25 more minutes waiting for the fire to chase me out. Am I going to make it? I don't know. I'm scared. I'm really honestly scared. So it's already dangerous coming out on El Camino Real. A couple other things I looked at. I looked at the environmental, I'm not sure if it's the environmental report, but we were talking about what's going to be affected in flora and fauna. And there's, it says in their own report that there's 4 different species, special status flora, that are going to be affected. And I'm not an environmentalist, but that doesn't sound good to me. I'm not sure that study is thorough enough. We're here to seek approval, the developer here to seek approval on the density bonus, the design review permit, the coastal development permit, and certificate of compliance. I'll get to the ending.
Keep going, man. There's only 4 speakers here, and we really want to hear what you say.
Thank you. The coastal development plan, that report says that there's possibility of previously unrecorded archaeological resources will be encountered. I'm a little worried about that. It's in the 2005 Cultural Resources Report done by ASM affiliates. Monitoring would be required during grading to make sure there are no disturbed artifacts. I learned tonight, and I didn't know this, that you need to legalize the map for the remainder parcel. It seems to me you have the ability to approve or not approve that. Number one, I'd say you shouldn't approve it. Based on the work that's been done so far, I'm not convinced that this is going to be a safe development. So my takeaways here, and what I'm asking you to do, is deny the waivers, deny the encroachment, deny the height, require at minimum El Camino Real access directly for this project. We built the bridge over that ditch. They could do it too for their development. I understand it's environmental concern. That can be mitigated too. Let's not just wave it off and say, oh, environmental says that might be hard. Well, it is hard. It was hard for us. It should be hard for them. If you're not going to do those things, we think you should put a light there with crosswalks for safety. When they have the art night across the street, people park up and down El Camino Real, and they're diving across El Camino Real. Again, 60, 70 mile an hour cars. It's pretty dangerous.
We're going to have to move on. I think I know where you're coming from.
I'll get to my conclusion.
Get to the conclusion if you could.
So I feel personally like the city already sold us out with the overlay zone. And I'd like you to show us, the citizens, that you're not going to sell us out to the guys with ties and button-down shirts and slick-down hair and all the money that say this is going to be great for the community. There's not going to be one person in here that's going to tell you this is great for Encinitas and great for our community. So I want you to think about those 25 minutes tonight when you go to bed. And if you have a 5-month-old grandson, does that sit okay with you? For me, it doesn't.
Thank you.
Our final speaker is Donna Westbrook.
Donna Westbrook, Encinitas. The only reason Sage Canyon was chosen, other than a buddy of the people who were choosing, was that it was vacant. But it wasn't vacant. It already had a subdivision with the owner saying that he would repair, he would fix up the creek. It wouldn't look the way it looks now as you see it. It would be a creek, and it would be 50 feet from wherever the building would be, since a riparian is 50 feet. What also bothers me is they talk about the low income. Low income is supposed to be built where people can walk to get their groceries, where people can get other necessities that they need. There is no way you're going to walk. If it's a mile, yeah, you can walk a mile one way, 1 mile back. But that does not meet the specifications. So the mere fact that you are going to need a car, and those that may not have a car, and that would reject those who don't have a car and ride transit, because we don't have transit in the area. So what are we going to do then? The bus doesn't come down. You don't get to hop on the coaster. So it's not an appropriate place for low income. This is another thing that's not discussed. And I think one of the things that really is disturbing is they're just going to cut into the hill a little bit, just a little bit. So we're going to have all these retaining walls. It doesn't have it now. Why would you cut into the hall to put in the retaining walls if we don't need them? They can make it smaller, or perhaps it's not the place for them. But remember, it's not for low income. It's for that other number that they want, which is what, about 125 that will be doing, or will be paying that for the market rate. And we really, at this point, don't need that. And it's a very bad place, a very, very bad place to put in that many. If you want to try the 12 like they had before, which really was objectionable, but it was certainly better than what we have or what's being proposed. Think about how are they going to get to the grocery store? How are they going to go to school? Well, they can ride their e-bike. Do they have $200 or $2,000 for that e-bike? Who knows? But, this is becoming very ridiculous as far as chugging things into areas where they shouldn't be. This is probably one of the last areas that has open space, that they can actually fix the creek up and that you can have open space. If you looked at Sage Canyon, most of it is now grown in, so that's what this part should look like. They're not talking about doing that with Sage Canyon. They're talking about leaving it alone. It'll just be like it is. So the wall itself or the side of the canyon is going to continue to erode. Thank God somebody could say no to this, and I hope that you are the people who say no. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Westbrook. That's it?
Can I go? Actually, I have
One more?
I'm Ben Bowen, also in Sage Canyon, and I wasn't planning to speak, but just, looking at the wonderful presentation that the developers do. And of course, no one here is naive. The developers are in it for the money. If they really wanted this for the betterment of the community, they build a park, but there's no money in that, right? So they're gonna maximize every view that they show in the presentations. They're gonna make the development look as small as it can be. Everything is to their benefit that you see that they produce. Of course, I don't blame them. I'm in real estate myself. But as a community member of Sage Canyon, that we've already had this development, which was supposed to be 12 custom homes, family homes, in this lot. Now we're talking about 145 new units that I don't see any green space in that development. I don't see anywhere where a child would play other than the pool hardscape area. There was no green setbacks. And they're asking for waivers to maximize their potential, right? We're already getting a high-density development. They could build, if they could, that would be a 10-story building. They would put 2,000 units in there if they could. So all I would ask is, I know we are all getting forced these mega developments, but let's minimize it as much as possible for the safety concerns that we've talked about, but also just for the community itself. It really is not for the betterment of the community. It's for them to maximize their return on investment. And you can see how much that property sold for before and after the density bonus. It went up 2x, millions and millions of dollars of value. That's not because they were going to build 12 homes anymore. They're going to build as many as they could. And there's no one in here that's naive enough to think that they're not going to try and build as many as they can. And if they can stretch it with these waivers, of course, they're going to do that. But who's it going to harm? It's going to harm the neighbors that are right next door and having to deal with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. One more?
Well, I'm not even going to take 3 minutes.
Can you all be sure to make sure you fill out a speaker slip
I'm
too
so
after?
sorry.
No,
Okay.
just
Oh,
making
after.
sure afterwards,
Okay.
please. Thank you.
My name is Gigi Vilicic. Thank you for listening to all of us. I wasn't planning on speaking, but I'm a homeowner, Sage Canyon. I've been there 12 years. And just echoing everything they've said, going back to this issue with the entryway and evacuation, safety, if there were to be a fire, traffic. The builders mentioned 296 parking spaces at this Sage Canyon apartment. So that implies 296 cars. We don't have that many cars in our little street. So again, like, there are many things I don't like about this project, but at minimum, can they have a different entryway? Because it's ridiculous how many cars would be, the traffic in and out of that little circular driveway that you've all driven by and seen. So I just wanted to reiterate that piece and give time to someone else to speak. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Nick. I'm not sure your last name.
Transier, thanks. Just 2 points really quickly. One, Andrew, could you put slide 24 back up, please? So I just wanted to point out, the developers say that they built this to look like Encinitas. And if you put that picture back up, you'll see that it looks nothing like Encinitas. It sticks out like a sore thumb, like someone dropped a Lego building on our street. And then the second thing is, in none of these reports have I seen anyone deal with the traffic intersection actually coming out of Sage Canyon's neighborhood into the cul-de-sac area, which I understand is not a cul-de-sac. But you basically have traffic moving in 3 directions coming into a single point. Yeah, this. If you notice, everything is very scenic, right, until you put that building there. And that's why we bought there, because it felt like we were in the countryside, even though we weren't. So that does not look anything like Encinitas. And then back to the point I was just making, there's a lot of traffic going into one point right there, and there's no control. There's not stop signs coming out of Sage Canyon. There's not, as far as I saw, stop signs coming out of the building. And you have a lot of cars going, especially cars coming into the cul-de-sac at high speed off of El Camino Real. So I'd like to see those things addressed. I think they're skipping those because they're obviously tough points. And just to point out that they showed earlier the height, where they're looking for the height waiver. It's right there. It's that ugly mass that's sticking out on the side of the street, which we're going to see every time we go in and out of the neighborhood. So that's it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Laurel Martin. I also live on Sage Canyon. Very concerned about the in and out traffic, but everybody's already mentioned that, as well as wildfire evacuation. I'm farther down the street. We are surrounded. Behind my house is a hill, lots of vegetation. If there's a wildfire, I'm going to be one of the last ones to get out. And one thing nobody talked about, and I don't know if it's been addressed, is bluff erosion. During the rain, in these recent rains, there's little rivers already coming down that hill. They're going to be cutting into the bluff. And I'm wondering, particularly those entryway homes, what's going to happen to their bluff when it rains? Is anyone addressing that? What's going to happen if that bluff collapses into our backyards? I would encourage you to all come visit us before you approve this project. Please take a look at it. I also don't agree with their calculation of the exit time during a wildfire. We already use 3 lanes. We already turn right and turn left in 2 lanes and one lane to entrance. So they're not adding a lane. And we did tell them that on the community phone call, and they didn't address it. So I just would encourage you to come to our homes, to our street, and look at it before you approve this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Last call. I'm going to close. Oh, yeah. Well, no, I'm not closing public comment. Yeah, because Austin, come on back up here. You've got to.
First off, thank you all for your comments. I appreciate you guys having the comfortability to come up here, so I appreciate it. First off, change is hard. I know it is. I know I go to this meeting and I know it's going to be difficult to bring change to a community. There were a couple comments on profit and developer, and I know there's this image of it, but I wanted to make the distinct point in our presentation. What's allowed here is 275 units. The changing of the tide for housing is going to be more and more, higher and higher for density. I'm only proposing 145. Yes, that's changed from 113. And when I was a kid, having a track map at 13 would have been, oh my gosh, it's too much for Encinitas. There's always changing of time. The safety concerns are super valid when it comes to the traffic. We're improving those areas. It is in a level of service that isn't functioning. So all of their feelings about their danger and what they're experiencing is accurate. When I come in and I improve the project, that goes away. It gets to a level of service that is acceptable for traffic standards. The parking comment that was made, I'm following the city's standard. If everybody wants me to reduce parking, I'm more than happy to do so. But every time I've come up here, it is don't reduce parking. We need it for the community. We don't want the overflow. So I spent more money to put more parking, subterranean parking, so you don't see it, so there's no spillover. These are all costs to me, not stuffing coffers. The other thing is with the road, we looked at it. We couldn't get coastal to agree on it for coming in a different direction. We also couldn't. It's a public road. I have the right to use a public road, just like they had a right when they built their thing. And the one thing that often gets lost in these sort of discussions is when I use the word community, it's not just the 34 homes I'm talking about. It's the greater community of Encinitas. And when I look at a project, I evaluate it project by project. And the reason I purchased the project is I grew up here. I didn't want our black hat developers to come in here, put the building and I know it's already happening with other developers. They're going to put the building in an 8-story building and go, I'm allowed to ask for a height waiver. Too bad. That's the law, and that's what I'm going to do. I didn't come in here to do that. I don't think it's right for people to do it. And I spent a lot of time, multiple years, proposing a project. I don't come in here just looking at it from those lenses. And so there's a lot of thought. And if I didn't answer a question or communicate a vision properly to you guys, please ask me more questions so that I can better articulate a view or a discussion or something. I'm happy to answer anything you guys want. So I think I try to jot down as much as I could, but appreciate all you guys on your comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Austin. Here, stick around for a minute. It might be a better one for him. I had a question about that Lux Canyon Creek, the one that's packed to the
Patrick.
gills with ice plant.
Yeah.
What the heck are you going to do about that?
So because it's so close to the coastal, because it's the wetland, we're staying out of it. So the part that is, and if I answer a question incorrectly, Patrick, please hit me with data. So I'm staying out of it. What I'm doing is the piece that is protruding into there, the part I can grab, I'll grab, but I'm staying away from that creek because it was a major concern for the agencies.
Gotcha, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Just to add real quick, if we even touch the water area, the wetlands area, I mean, that is highly sensitive habitat. It really is kind of an off-limits thing. We've gone back and forth with the resource agencies on how we can do an improvement to this area, and really just came down to the fact that everyone will be best served if it's just left, not just left the way it is, because we're going to be doing a lot of improvements around that water, but just the specific waterway itself is gonna, we can't go in there, but like I said, we get right up to it and we're improving, restoring, putting 1.2 acres of habitat on site. So we're doing the best we can with what we
Cool.
got.
That was, wasn't really sure. There was a couple of places in the staff report seemed to indicate that invasive species would be removed and replaced with native species. And I was wondering where is that happening?
Everywhere outside of the creek itself.
Just
like
yours.
embankments and everything.
If it's in that 100 feet, you're trying to keep hands off. Okay, thanks. That was it.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay, so my question has to do with the height of the building and the additional parking. Just so I can understand, because you're doing 2 levels of parking. Okay, so, and just from reading the documents and everything you've been saying, I mean, you've put in more parking than is required.
I'm following the exact city code.
Okay.
So I'm not doing any additional parking. What normally happens, and what I was alluding to before, is normal developers come in here and they reduce the parking count, and that is usually the number one complaint from community, because ultimately we all still drives cars, and that spillover happens into the community. And so the number one voice that I normally hear coming to this is don't reduce the parking. And so the point I was trying to make was I didn't. I followed the exact city code.
Right, okay, so it has to do with that, though. So you didn't reduce the parking that you could have reduced. In doing so, in following the city code, did that require you to do the 2 levels of parking versus 1 level of parking? And then, because it's the 2 levels of parking really that get you to the height issue, correct? The 2 levels of the parking is what gets that one portion of the building above the height limit, or no?
No, those areas are basement levels. The height
Okay.
is done from the existing grade. If you could pull up my slide, if you could, and go up to the one that shows the elevation and the hill, if you could. It's a good visual with the lines graphs, because then you can see everything in one plane.
But the parking isn't completely subterranean. A portion of it.
A portion of it is. Yeah.
Okay. And so the portion that's not subterranean, you actually measure from the surface up, right?
From the finished grade.
Right, the finished grade. Okay.
Yeah. So I want him to pull it up so that you can actually see it. I don't want to be misleading with words, so it's easier to
Yeah.
see.
I'd like to interject
Yeah, of
something
course.
relevant to what your question is.
Yeah.
You may have complied with city code, but due to density development standards, you could have had fewer spaces, correct?
Yes.
Right.
I believe that number was about 173.
For the parking?
Yes.
The total stalls on site are 296. For state law, yes.
So I think there's a common theme here as this is coming up, is I am concerned, and I'll speak for myself.
Yeah.
I'm concerned that because you're doing 296, that you're having to build higher, especially up front. One way would be to scoop a deeper hole, or another way, to bring the building down. That would address the concern of one of the constituents in terms of the massing study from the front. So you can dig a deeper hole, bring the building down. That's going to cost money, I understand that, but you could also save money by not having to build 296 stalls. So if the state code for the density bonus is 173, 296 is a business decision to affect your renters, to get more renters, to give the ability to have 2 cars per unit. That's also increasing our traffic consideration where we're all a level service of F. So we're already F, you're putting 290 stalls in, and you're building more stalls than are required ideally in a situation like this. So, thoughts?
If I could, Tim Hutter, I'm an attorney at Allen Matkins, advising the developer. I just want to clarify on the density bonus. Part of what is requested here is a density bonus waiver associated with the height. The additional stalls are essentially an amenity for the community. I think you're right. They're an amenity for this community. They're also an amenity to make sure that those cars are not spilling out onto the street. What density bonus law says is that when a developer brings forward a project that meets the requirements of density bonus law, they're allowed to design it how they see fit. In fact, we've had a lot of time discussing those issues with the city of Encinitas in the past, getting HCD involved. And the idea of trying to redesign the project to take the parking
I don't mean
out.
to cut you off, but that almost seemed like a veiled threat in terms of City of Encinitas and HCD.
No.
We're talking about just this project.
And what I'm talking about,
and the
sir,
density.
is
so I'd like to
your
just kind
legal
of
right.
keep it focused
Yep.
on this and not bring in the state. So let's just kind of keep it on this project.
And I'm just advising you of how density bonus law works.
I take my advice from the city attorney, so I'd rather not have this kind of banter, and let's just keep it to the project itself.
Okay, I'm just advising you that the 296, the parking
You're
spaces
not
are an
my
amenity.
client. That's just
You
so
do-
you know.
you will do what you
I
will.
appreciate that, and I appreciate your skill.
If you don't mind, just to reiterate, if something was not accurate,
No, so actually what their attorney was stating is correct. So if a city cannot apply a development standard that would physically preclude the construction of a project as designed, even if the building includes amenities beyond the bare minimum of building components.
And I'm asking the rhetorical question of the applicant. Are you building more parking stalls from a business discussion, which you can do, but I'm not getting that answer. So I'm asking the rhetorical question, are you building 296, thus having to increase the size of the parking? If that's the case, that's fine, just tell us that.
I think I've said it, but I'll say it again.
Please.
No, it's not. For me, it's more expensive to do it. But I don't think that resonates with your point. The more I build those parking stalls, what I normally park a ratio at is around 1.8. This is like, I own a lot of buildings around town. I know how buildings live and how they don't live, what works and doesn't work. When you go in and you follow the state code, it overflows and causes a big problem. What buildings kind of work is a 1.8 ratio with a mix of 50-50 kind of, when 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms. The issue becomes we're a commuter community. That's why we have a higher parking ratio. That's what I thought you'd be saying to me tonight. I'm actually taken back on the comments. I thought they would be very different. We're a commuter-based place. All we do is drive. When I come to these meetings, that's what I hear. And so I spent money, not reduced money. If you guys want to condition the project to do less, I am willing to entertain it. I thought it would be a different discussion. I thought I was going to be praised for this, not crucified. So, but
You use crucifixions a little bit aggressive.
I agree.
All
I
right,
should have
so
chose different language. I should have chose different language.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We're just trying to talk about just the massing of the project.
Yeah.
And clearly my concern is the massing of the project.
Right.
From the street level and the amount of cars that we already believe in section 6.5 of the traffic study talks about a level of service of F. So putting 296 stalls into your project, business decision, cost money, completely understand.
Got it.
But it's also adding to the concerns of a level F level of service at that intersection.
You are 100% correct. But when I do those improvements, that level of service gets out of F. The slide that my colleague went through about all those improvements that we're doing actually takes the failing service that is today and actually puts it at a level of service that's acceptable. You could ask the traffic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alrighty, thank you. Matthew Edgeworth, traffic engineer with the city. So I think it's important to note where that level of service E and F is stemming from, pre-project conditions. So with regards to the intersection, the critical leg of the intersection is the west leg on the opposite side.
Can you pull up the traffic study that's an attachment to the document, it's attachment number 15, so that the people in the audience can see it?
And this is mentioned in the traffic study on page 19. So with regards to the level of service F and E during the AM and PM peak hours, as mentioned, the critical leg at that intersection is on the opposite side, so the west leg. Because this project is not adding any sort of volume to that leg or the critical turning movement, which is actually the left turn out from the west side driveway northbound, it's improving level of service for the intersection. Level of service is the average delay regarding all the approaches at the intersection. So that's where you see the decrease in delay coming from. And then in addition, they are restriping the Sage Canyon Drive approach. So that is also helping level of service as well.
But there's nothing on the west side other than, you're talking about the condos or the greenhouse?
Correct, those driveways.
So the condos on that side, how many units are there?
I don't have that information off the top of my head. Based off of the traffic counts, that turning movement out of that driveway of the condos to make that left, that's the critical turning movement at that intersection.
And that's currently level F. So if we add 149 units on the east side, approximately the same amount of units, we're not going to be at the same level of service because of the striping and the decel lane?
You're adding volume on the non-critical approach of that intersection.
Which is northbound turning right. But getting out, isn't that a problem? Getting out and turning south?
So where the volume is coming from is that southbound El Camino Real. So on that west side driveway where the condos are, making that left turn, that's where you see the delay. Where this project is located on the east side, so if someone is traveling down south El Camino Real, they would get into the center two-way left turn lane and then proceed into the Sage Canyon approach. If they're traveling northbound on El Camino Real, they just have the easy maneuver to make the right.
I don't think right's the issue. I think that the issue from a safety standpoint, concerned about is getting southbound. So coming out of Sage Canyon and turning left. Can you show the statistics? Maybe I just read the wrong chart. So maybe show the statistics of turning out and turning left and going south to get onto the freeway.
Are you looking for, Commissioner, the volumes of that?
The level of service to turn out in an emergency for an evacuation, going out and turning left, which I believe the constituents talked about the safety issue of trying to wait. I think it was 73 seconds or something. So what is the left southbound and how are the improvements that the applicant is suggesting going to improve that?
So when it comes to level of service isn't calculated per turning movement. It's calculated based off of the average level of service for the entire intersection. So we can't assign a level of service for a particular turning movement.
So it's only the traffic that runs north and south? I thought the whole point of an intersection, such as we had at Quail Gardens and Encinitas Boulevard, that signaled intersection was level F. And the overriding concern that the Planning Commission did on that particular project was because it was so far beyond we couldn't do anything about it on all those projects. So that was clearly a left-hand turn, right-hand turn onto Encinitas Boulevard. So I'm a little confused on why you cannot calculate the impact of 870 ADTs generated by the project to turn left and go south on El Camino.
So this is an aerial of the intersection location. So I can kind of walk through where that critical approach is. So the critical approach is on the west side right here. So most of the traffic is coming southbound in the mornings. So in order for this driveway to make that left turn lane, they're experiencing the most delay, just because there's more volume southbound than there is northbound. Now, during the AM peak period, say if someone from Sage Canyon Drive wants to make the left turn, they're experiencing less volume for vehicles going northbound on El Camino Real. So they don't experience as much delay as the opposite side.
But you just commented that the traffic, let's just take the morning peak. I'm coming southbound on El Camino Real. You've just said the people coming out of the project across the street are inhibited because of so much volume coming southbound, right? They're going to get on the freeway. That's what they're doing. So if I'm coming out of Sage Canyon and there's a fire, or I'm coming out of Sage Canyon and I want to turn left, I got to cross 3 lanes of El Camino Real going north, and you're saying, fine, no problem. There's not a lot of peak traffic, El Camino Real going north. But now I got to turn left and get in all that traffic you just said was an impediment to the other side. So where in your analysis is that calculation for those people not only living there now, but for the people that will be residing in the new project?
So when it comes to these traffic studies that look at level of service at an intersection, the traffic studies take vehicle counts for each approach and each turning movement. And then from those counts, it gets plugged into a traffic system. Synchro is what we typically use. And based off of that software, it can predict what delays are for each of the approaches. So this was, put through that software program, and that's where the level of service and the delays are calculated from.
Okay, so show me and the people here in your report somebody coming out of Sage Canyon and turning left.
So they would get, right here, correct?
Yeah, coming out of Sage Canyon, I'm at the stop sign, and I want to turn left and go southbound on El Camino. Where in the traffic study is that calculation so that we can all see it?
So again, turning movements don't get assigned a particular level of service.
I also have if you don't mind, Commissioner, I also have a traffic engineer here that can comment on stuff as well. But I wanted to make sure you guys had respectful consideration of.
I need to be respectful.
Yeah.
For my fellow commissioners,
Yeah.
So I want to stop, take this, and then.
Yeah, and also I don't want to forget, Commissioner Ryan, we still need to go back to your height question. Okay.
And we've got time and deliberations. I
Yeah.
think we can call up the experts if we need to.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's,
Hello,
so
good evening,
when you're
Planning
done, I'm going to
Commissioners.
call a break for the group here. I think everyone would probably appreciate that.
I think if we could close this loop real quick.
It should
Yeah,
be
no,
brief, and
let's-
then I'll be
let's
here
hear what
for, any other questions. But to answer the specific question from you, Planning Commissioner, so to turn a westbound left, and this is the results from the traffic engineering software that Matthew Edgeworth was mentioning. So in order to turn a westbound left, the delay experienced by that particular movement is 21 seconds. Like, this is an average, 21 seconds, which is a level of service C, during the AM peak hour. And then during the PM peak hour, it's 26.4 seconds of delay, which equates to a level of service D.
And that's calculated with or without the project?
With project. Correct.
Level D now.
Correct. And this is including the project traffic as well as the project improvements.
Why does he have that information?
So,
That's what I was asking you for.
so that's the information taken from the software. So when it comes to the traffic study, it lists the level of service for the entire intersection. It doesn't list level of service for each of those turning movements. Those are coming from the software.
Let's close public comment. Austin, we'll call you, we'll open.
Oh, yeah,
and
whatever
call
you
back
guys
if
need.
be.
I
Wait,
still
no,
have a
Chris, do you
question
have something?
for staff
we have more?
related to that discussion about parking that Bob brought up.
Okay. I'm usually by around 8 o'clock, I'll usually try and take a break because people kind of want a break after 2 hours. So let's, so do we need I want to close public comment if possible. Does anyone have any compelling need to keep it open? Nope, I'm closing public comment. We're going to take a 10-minute break, people. Thank you. And we will come back with your questions, and we'll dig into this.
Great dough, I started to laugh. Heard that.
Yeah, it's happened before.
So one thing I do.
We can be redesigned, and then we in order to have power, and basically came down. On my side, right? I was like, hey guys, I've been telling you that that's the law, and then here's this court agrees with me. That was another one where I was like, okay, well, we're gonna change our
Filter it, and, clean it. It's funny, I'm actually working on one plan up there. Up in that area, right? And engineers telling us they treat the water, and then we contaminate the water. I'm just, wow, I don't know about that. That does sound a little, Welcome back, everybody. Sorry we went a couple of minutes over there.
You want me back?
Just sit, make yourself comfortable. We'll figure out what's going to happen next. I've kind of lost track of who's in the middle of which question. Yep, okay. Then, yeah, come on up. I think it's well, that's, I've seen I remember seeing an architect once who wanted to sit down like 8 times in a row.
Yeah. Andrew, can you pull up that slide, sorry, again? And the architect clarified that it's not 2 levels of parking. What he did was he cascaded the building down to minimize that height protrusion. So while we were taking that 10-minute break, he clarified with me. So the red line shows the 35 feet. So cut the screen in half. So the left side is under the height limit. So if I took it from where the grade is, everything under, I'm well under the height limit. And then as I work my way towards El Camino Real, I clearly puncture that height limit. And so what we did was we took the parking garage to minimize the habitat stuff. Is we actually, if you look at the shape of the building, it's a kind of unique shape that it actually goes with the typology of the building. And then we cascaded the garage down to minimize that height. And so, yes, there are components of it. And I knew, height's always a concern. So that's another reason why we pulled the building away from the houses that, a lot of the speakers today all came from that community. We knew it was going to be concerned. So how far, when we're designing the building, how far can we get away? Because that's really where the complaints are going to be. And I think in our presentation, we were approximately 200 feet away from their houses. So I don't know if I fully answered your question or not.
Yes, you did. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Susan, did you have anything for him?
Could I?
I just had a question for staff still.
Okay, no.
I also answered another question wrong, which was yours.
Oh, okay.
That I would like to clarify. My biologist made it abundantly clear. We are, the areas that you read, we are going down, and we're just not touching that center line of that water line. So of that 100 feet, there are components of it, as much as we can get down into it, that we're cleaning up.
Cool, because, there's
Yeah.
a lot of crap in there.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah.
So,
Cool. Well, thanks. I think I'm going to, no one's got more questions, or Susan, do you? No? Then let's, we're going to close public comment, have a seat.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for your
We'll go
questions.
dive into deliberations. All right. Are we in deliberations? Is anyone really all anxious to start up? Oh, yeah, Susan, you had a question for staff. Why don't we start
just
there?
quickly. I wasn't sure, in the traffic report, I read that 35% of the proposed project trips were assigned along El Camino Real North, and 65% of the proposed project trips were assigned along El Camino Real South of the project site. But actually, I don't know why that would be the case, because although we might presume that people commute south to San Diego downtown or something like that, but isn't all of the grocery shopping pretty much north? And like all of our big box stores are north on El Camino Real. So I'm not sure why that was split that way, because it seems to me, I mean, it probably is much more likely that most of the trips will be north, where all of our amenities and various things. Not everybody wants to get on the freeway. I'm one of those people. I don't get on the freeway, rarely get on the freeway.
Thank you, Commissioner. You are correct. 65% of the trips were thought to be heading southbound on South El Camino Real, and then 35 northbound from the Sage Canyon egress and egress. So typically, when it comes to project trip generation, that is in coordination between city staff and the developer's traffic consultant to work out. So when it comes to trip distribution, typically we're looking at weekday. Typically, weekday has the higher volume. So when it comes to the distribution, we're looking at an average weekday, so Monday through Friday. Because southbound is the access to the I-5 freeway, that's why more trips are being assigned to that southbound direction as opposed to the northbound direction.
Thanks. I don't really agree with it, but thanks.
Okay, well, no one else is. I'm just going to dive right in. I kind of broke this down, what I like and what I don't like. Of course, nobody likes a big housing complex, but we were not involved in improving this location. What I do like, and I do remember this, Austin, from the last project you hadn't, or I was here, which I believe I denied that project, but you did give us 20%, a true 20%, which is rare. Usually we get 14 and change percent. It's annoying. But I appreciate that. I like the complex. I think you followed the objective design standards really well. I'll give props to your architect. I mean, the biggest thing that most people are going to go wow over is it's huge. I spent a lot of time walking up and down following Lux Canyon Creek, and honestly, I don't really care that making that 3 lanes wide. I think that's, I kind of hate the fact that this road is so wide with 12-foot lanes, which I think in places are perhaps bigger than 12-foot. They're just, people go too darn fast there. It's a little weird seeing the 2 churches with their 3rd lane cut in and then back out, but honestly, I don't see any way or any purpose to pushing it in and making a 3rd lane there. That said, I did look at it, and all I could think was like, God, a 4.5-foot sidewalk with your elbows hanging out into the street scared the willies out of me. I know the 2 justifications for the removal were based, there was talking about a 26.5-foot difference from scraping it all the way back or coming back not at all. And I'm hoping, and this is what I would recommend to council, is that I've looked at, I think we could push another couple of feet, not 26.5, but another 3. I would love to see some sort of a buffer. I would like to see our pedestrian walkway not right at the edge of the curb. So everyone's pointed out how fast people go here. We're right at the choke point. It's dangerous. And so I'm crossing my fingers and hoping that something, as I know the analysis showed all or nothing, but I got a feeling there's room for a little wiggle room there. And, I mentioned you run rental properties, and I think I like rental units, especially affordable rental units. I like rental units in general. I think that's what we need more of here. Not everyone can afford I don't even know what the average of houses is now. It's probably north of $1.5 million. Condos, last time I made myself look, were, I think the cheapest one was like $895. So home ownership is, in Encinitas, something you have to work up towards. And that's why I like rental units. There are bridge housing. They're the part that gets you from, just starting out to building yourself up to eventually owning a home here, hopefully. And the fact that you're owner-operators is a big plus in my book. Not really sure exactly what to say about the way Sage Canyon comes out. I do see it's going to be a little bit easier now that you have that defined lane that you'll have to get into. But I think we'll probably end up with some discussions on that. Concerning the ingress and egress, that pseudo roundabout, it's a 40-foot wide entryway. I marked that out with my little roller, and it's, I think, I'm going to look over at Andrew and our traffic guy, and I think that's 40 feet is proper for a road like this. I mean, right now, people are used to having it serve 12 families. Now it's going to be serving a bunch more. But I do think a second entrance, another bridge across this wetland, it's not going to fly. We may try and push it, but I get a feeling coastal's going to come down. It's not going to happen. It's going to be a major undertaking. And chances are the developer will point out that it's like, well, this is impacting our ability to deliver the housing that we've obligated to deliver. So I don't know. I don't think that's going to move forward. Really, I come into all of these things all fired up, and I'm thinking, what am I going to find wrong? And I look, and no offense, I do this to everybody, and I go through the whole different stages, but the design is good. It's tucked in as much as it can be. I don't know if you really qualify for 50%. I think we've passed a density bonus law. I don't know, did they miss that one too? We passed our own density bonus ordinance, which I think limits it. It doesn't go up to 50. But it's legal. We did it. That's about it. All I really had was like, God, I really don't like having that sidewalk brushing up against the roadway. I think it's terrifying, and it looks like a safety risk to me. I picture anyone coming flying up that road, and as pointed out, faster than 60, and all of a sudden, it's like, they're right there. They're coming from behind you. It doesn't make me happy. Anyway, here's my comments, initial. Who wants to jump in?
I'm just going to jump in on the sidewalks. It was my understanding that, and I could be wrong, is that the reason for the placement of the sidewalks there was because of environmental concerns, specifically.
Well, but it was the reason it was there instead of 26 feet over was because of the environmental concerns. We were shown two options, one with the entire thing pushed back, a third lane put in, an 8-foot bicycle lane, which would bring it like into the middle of that little creek already. And I don't think we need that. I mean, I'm okay with the little bump out. I just don't want the sidewalk where it bumps out to be brushing up against traffic. I get a feeling there's I've seen there's like one spot, or maybe at like, what was it, maybe I'll say 207 plus 5, where there's like a little wash, water's washed in, and it's choked with ice plant. But, you know, that was about the only place where I thought pushing that sidewalk in just a tad would cause any issues. And I think you already even had a wall spec there in that. Yeah, there's a bit of a retaining wall right around between 207 and 208. Anyway, it just seemed doable. And I don't think we decide on this one. I think we make recommendations to council on this one. Is that correct? And I'm going to recommend that they push for that, because it's, for me, it's the only real clear and obvious safety issue.
To me, it's a shame that the solution is to encroach further into the wetlands instead of
Yeah.
just reducing some of the lane widths on El Camino Real. I think that's beyond what we're going to go to and
Right.
talk about the city's, road system. But anyway, I'm a little disappointed that that's the trade-off that we're
Right.
given, and that there's not a different solution. But I think that other solution would come in time with a more broad look at the whole El Camino Real corridor. But I hear your concerns. I'd like a wider sidewalk. I'd like a wider bike lane, but it's also a very busy street. It's not
True.
a heavily pedestrianized place.
Yeah, when I first saw it, I mean, my thought was that, like, oh, God, we got to fight for, I want sidewalks going straight through. And then, of course, I started diving in. I was like, oh, shoot, we're in a Isha corridor here. And I know that the report said the animals aren't using this as a passageway from one place to another, but yes, they are. You know, maybe there's nothing useful at the other end, but I'm sure that there's a lot of wildlife up and down that creek.
In my mind, the decision was made when this site was put into the R30 overlay zone. People are upset about the added density, and I think Mr. Warmer is correct that change is hard. I have 3 kids. I'd like them to be able to live in my community. They need apartments. They need housing. So the city made a decision that this site was for a housing project like this. It doesn't even maximize the housing units that could go there. I think the discussion of parking is like, we can get you coming and going. You overpark and we're going to beat you up for it, and if you underpark, we're going to beat you up for it. So, I think you've done a respectable job of trying to park your units, understanding that there's not a lot of off-site parking for your residents to go to. That's going to be a benefit to any other neighbors along Sage Canyon Drive. So I have to respect that. I mean, it's a lot of parking, but I think that's a business decision that you need to make for yourself. Regarding the height and some of the incentives they ask, I think we know we have really very limited ability to really object to a height waiver. And so, ultimately they're asking for kind of one extra story or, an increase. And yeah, maybe we just be thankful they didn't come and ask for 3 extra stories or something greater than this. I think in general, kind of like you, Kevin, I usually start this by saying, what am I going to not like about the project, and what am I going to try to fight back on and push them further on? But, it kind of meets the code as I understand it, and I haven't seen any evidence given why the height limit or height waiver or the other waiver for the steep hillsides are not required. So I don't have a lot of objection to the project.
Malcolm, jump in on it. I think my main concern is safety for our residents of our community and our greater city. I think that all of the projects, and my recommendation for City Council, if you're watching and listening later, is that we really do need to have the mobility element. And it last was approved in 1989, and it's coming up for vote in November, is my understanding correct? And I actually think that none of these projects should be approved until that is finished, because the main problem with our city is that all of these streets were never designed for the kind of density that we're now mandated to deliver. And I don't really have a problem with adding density, and I absolutely understand the need for the affordable housing. But safety, I mean, a child of 13 years old was killed by a car, a van, on El Camino Real in June this summer. And so, I mean, as a mother, for me, safety is, and as an architect, safety, life safety, is my #1 priority. And adding 145 units may be less than the maximum, but it's still adding that many people, and it is adding trips, and those people are going to be on El Camino Real a lot, because that's the only way that they're coming out of that development. I don't have a problem with the height. I don't really have a comment on that, because I can see what you did. Design-wise, you tried to, stay under your height limit, and you weren't able to do it in one area of your building. I think that a lot of our city problems are growing pains, because we're a little beach town, a quaint little beach town. And it developed, all of a sudden mushroomed in the 70s, 80s, and now even more because of these housing mandates. And so I kind of feel for everybody involved. And I read the comment letters, and I want to comment on the Vision Zero that was approved by the city September 22nd, 2021. And I think our city needs to do more for safety. And I think that as a person who rides a bike just about every day in our city, one of the things is bollard. I love those green, very visible. They're not hard concrete, but I would recommend to City Council, we need those, especially we need them places where the bike lane crosses over, such as that on El Camino Real. There's a place like that at Santa Fe, where your bike, if you want to go straight, you're crossing over a traffic lane. Somehow that needs to be better protected, because the cars that are coming cross over to turn right, and you're trying to cross over to the left to go straight as a bike, and you're not very fast as a bike compared to a car. So I think that the mobility plan, the approved mobility plan, should include something that addresses the safety better, and especially with all of the units coming in. So I agree with this commenter who wrote and mentioned Vision Zero, of course, is to achieve 0 deaths. We had, in the last couple years, I believe, 6 deaths due to collisions, and before that, we've continually had a few and many collisions that resulted in many more injuries. But I think that as an advisory recommendation, safety has to be #1. The speed limit should go down, in my opinion, and I believe an adaptive signal light at that Sage Canyon, El Camino Real intersection should go in. And I think that although there is some improvement, is how I would put it, in the LOS, we know that that still, if there were only 33 dwellings on that road previously, and now we're adding 145 dwellings, it doesn't really matter so much about how many parking spots you're providing. I do think the provisions of density bonus law require less parking, because the whole idea is that it should go in urban infill, transit rich, and urban shops amenity-rich areas, and I don't think this area qualifies in that regard. This area takes away some of the last remaining open space, but it's not my call as to which parcels were included in upzoned R30, and it was. And so you have the right to develop it. But it's, in my opinion, it wasn't a smart decision to upzone that particular location on the perimeter of a lot of wildlife area close to the lagoon and bluff area. It's, I'm sad for the loss for the wildlife, and I was sad when a bobcat came into my yard and ate my 6 chickens after the construction began on Manchester for that senior facility that we approved. So it is changing. Not all of the changes are for the better. Let me see, I think I have a couple more comments here. Oh, yes. The speed of the cars on El Camino Real, and I live about 2 blocks from where that child was killed earlier this summer. The speed of those cars exceeds 55 at times, for sure. And I'm not sure, but maybe you could think about something, or City Council can think about something that we can do to encourage people, even after the speed limit, if it would be changed. Even though the speed limit would be changed, people will still speed. So we need to do something to really encourage people to slow down. And I don't know if it's signage or, door hangers or what, but I feel the speed is a real problem at that area. And I think for a long time it was kind of a rural road, and I think people just got used to flying down that road to get to the freeway. It was like the fast way to get to the I-5. But let's see what else I have here. This young lady, Aaliyah Sanic, who wrote in, she says that there'll be increased pedestrians. I'm not sure about that, but I do think that the traffic was her major concern, and it's definitely a consideration. And then there was one other person that wrote in, about the biological and everything. I myself looked up on TIMS, which is a resource, a web tool, that shows where traffic accidents happen in Encinitas. I was curious. Well, is this a problem area? Safety is always on my mind. And so when I looked it up, sure enough, 101 is our most, coast highway, has the most accidents noted on it. But El Camino Real has quite a few as well. Encinitas Boulevard and Santa Fe, Lucadia have their share. So this is between Santa Fe and Encinitas, and I see a number of accident spots on these TIM map. You can look it up online. It's a resource where it uses GIS to map collisions that have been happening over the years. And I think it has about a 10-year history on it. So, so this is definitely one of those streets that is safety is an issue. Safety, number one.
I'll go.
Before, let me just, Susan. So now, one of the things I know is the lanes are listed at 12 feet wide. The lanes that on El Camino Real. And one of the things that's proven to slow automobiles down is to narrow those lanes. And I don't know if we're really allowed to, this being, I forget the designation of this road, that would call it as a 3-lane. But it's possible.
No, I agree. I agree with you.
I suspect in several places, the lanes are a whole bunch wider than that. Although I also feel that that's being addressed, starting from down at the lagoon and working its way up. the bike lanes are coming, the roads, instead of having this 30-foot stretch when just riding a lane up the middle of it, we're actually choking it down a bit. So I've got a feeling that's going to be hopefully addressed in time, but, and I think this plan here, since it's got a detailed lane diet, I think actually I'm looking at the southbound lane there, it's got to be well over 12 feet.
Also, it's a dark sky area just on south of this site, right?
Okay.
And so I think that we have a lot of seniors in Encinitas, and the number of seniors in the United States will probably, what is it? Is it doubling by, like, I don't know, 20 years from now or some fairly short amount of time? And so, you know, their night vision may not be as sharp as it was when they were younger. And so I think the combination of it being, you know, a dark sky area and an area with a lot of seniors and a lot of bikes. And I think, you know, there are certain times of day on certain streets in Encinitas where the sun, you know, just hits you in the eyes kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
And so I think there's definite safety concerns, and I think the lane width, if it can be narrowed so that they could not encroach into the wetland,
these
that
are
would
all-
be wonderful, but
these
I'm
are all
not
things
sure
we'll
how that would work for this kind of a project that's already in process, you know?
We can't make them do it,
Yeah, that's,
but
I don't really know what
let's,
you can work out
let's
with
hear
our
from-
city
let's hear from-
staff, but
let's hear from Commissioner Chris Ryan.
All right, thank you. So I appreciate the information you gave me regarding the height versus the parking. I was just curious about whether or not the additional parking underneath was the cause for the height. So, and I understand what our limitations are. I do like that the low-income units are spread throughout the project. I don't think we've talked about that at all. I think that's really nice. And I'm assuming, we didn't talk about it, but I'm assuming, and if you can correct me if I'm wrong, that the amenities in the low-income units are the same as the amenities in the market rate units? Okay, thank you. And I do like that the number of units that are going in, I do recognize that you could have put a lot more units in, and I think that that was sensitive to the neighborhood and sensitive to the location and the natural surrounding area. And I appreciate that, and I appreciate the design being sensitive to the area as well, as far as the bluff behind it and kind of being tucked in. I like projects that can be tucked into the natural environment when they can be, like the Moonlight one is tucked into the slope behind it. And so even though you use it as an example of architecture that maybe wasn't the greatest, but I liked that it was tucked in as well to the hillside. So I like that this is tucked in as it can be. I recognize and I appreciate what you're doing to try to not negatively impact the natural environment as far as wetlands and the plants and animals that do use this area. And so I just wanted to say that housing does benefit our community, and a choice of housing, a choice of not just low-income housing, but a choice of market rate housing and is important to a community. I know several people now, and in the past 2 weeks, who have been looking for rental properties and in Encinitas. And these are people who are employed and people who wouldn't qualify for low-income housing. And it is so hard to find affordable, not just affordable, but any real inventory of apartments to live in Encinitas. And it can be your kids, it can be your parents that are moving into town, it could be, you know, any kind of family situation where someone is looking for a place to live, and it is really hard to find a place to live in Encinitas to rent, and it is very hard to find something that's affordable. I mean, I don't know if you guys know, but, you know, a studio apartment can go, and I'm talking like a studio apartment, over $2,500 for a studio apartment a month.
Yep.
Okay, I mean, that's really a lot, and if you make $60,000 a year, for instance, and you're paying $2,500 a month, you might be spending over half of your monthly income, 60% of your monthly income on rent only. And that's not sustainable because you have other expenses in your life, not just your rent. So we do need to have places for people to live. We do need to have places for low-income people to live, because I believe that a more varied community is better for all of our community. And that includes people of different economic backgrounds. And I really do believe that providing housing for Encinitas is to the benefit of Encinitas. And I look at it as the entire community, not just one particular community, but like the entire community as a whole. Generally speaking, I do like the project, and I appreciate that you're putting in the low-income units. And the kind of thing about parking, you were talking about, you have a lot of parking here. I kind of think, generally speaking, in the United States, we overpark. We encourage people to drive from place to place because we make parking so readily available to people, and that people will use different modes of transportation if they understand that they can't drive to places and park to places. And I do think that pushes communities to have better mass transit, or to carpool, or to do different things. Encinitas isn't really there. I mean, in Southern California, we're a driving community. I'm from Chicago, so I'm from a place where you don't have to drive. I appreciate that you were trying to meet the needs of what you think people who are going to live in these units are going to need. And it is the number of parking spaces that you're putting into this complex. So I don't think I really have anything else to add at this point.
All right, here we go. Yep. All right, can you hear me? All right, some of these are going to be more technical. If you could please pull up the fire report, staff. Page 16, section 3.14. This is about the rare species protection. And I think this probably crosses over into the biology report. Actually, it's 3.16. And it maybe go back to your architect. Attachment 3 talks about alternative materials. The 3.16 of the fire report on page 15 said alternate materials and methods will be incorporated into the building site design. See attachment 3. Can you explain what those are? Is your architect here?
Am I allowed to answer?
Can I ask them the questions? Yeah. Oh, I didn't think it was public. Oh, it's public comment.
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry. I didn't know the rules.
Just an enhanced fire protection from. Oh, sorry, guys. I sat down though. It's all for the record. Okay. If you need a very technical answer, I have my fire specialist here. But from an 80,000 feet, it is an enhanced fire protection on the building itself. So there's extra fire sprinklers. The building materials are fire resistant, more fire resistant than normal. The windows are upgraded, things of that nature.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. It says attachment 3.1 in that same fire report. The project as designed will deviate from code. Can anybody explain to me what code it's deviating from? This is attachment 3.1 of the fire report. I have to find it. I have to go to the attachment. I didn't write that page down. I have to control F it. Hang on. All right, we can come back to that one. Yeah. I wrote down attachment 3.1. This project will be designed to deviate from the code. So I just wasn't sure what that was. All right, if I can't find it, I'll come back to it. Did the fire analysis consider the houses above as part of the calculations? We had another project come through that didn't consider neighboring communities. And also along that same line, did the fire analysis consider the additional development down the street at the Greek Orthodox Church in its calculations?
Hello. I'm the Senior Deputy Fire Marshal for Encinitas. I think I might need more information to answer your question correctly. In what aspects do you mean consider?
Probably the evacuation plan.
So the evacuation plan that was provided by the applicant is actually not required. They provided it anyway, just as more information. For the fire protection plan that was required, when it comes to defensible space, it's always for that parcel or that project in general.
So the plan that was submitted by the applicant, even though they didn't have to do it, because this is a by right project, which I understand. However, did you review the document and did it include the houses above, the condos across the street, and the new development down the street?
For the evacuation portion, it did, I believe, add the cars from the northbound one. Correct me if I'm wrong on their application team. Yeah. Yeah.
But it did include the Greek Orthodox Church and the development there? It did not? Okay. And did the houses above, yes, but not the new development down the street that was already approved? And do your calculations on the traffic side in the document that was submitted include the pre-approved project down the street from the Greek church in your calculations? Because that was approved a while ago before we are looking at these statistics.
In regards to traffic or in regards to evacuation?
Now, I guess you're telling me that you didn't review the evacuation plan to include the other project. I get that. But on the traffic side, the Greek Orthodox Church site was approved for development. Were those calculations and the impact of that traffic in your calculations for this project?
Thank you, Commissioner. No, those trips generated from the Greek Orthodox Church were not included in the traffic study. The city's general plan policies are project specific. They're not cumulative in terms of analysis.
Oh, all right. Interesting. The original citizens participation plan that was presented on May 14th, 2021 discussed 135 units. The project submitted today is 149 units. Is there, or 145? Is that a material, is 8% material difference at all in terms of having the applicant go back to the community to discuss the changes?
It is not. The actual 10 units were actually added on the interior of the courtyard. So on building 2 towards the back, there's actually like a step level on the inside that was a little bit lower. And then on the outside perimeter, it's the same height and kind of the same looks. So it's not even noticeable from the Jason.
Well, I'm thinking more from the total count of the units. So they were presented a plan of 135 units by R&V Management, who I guess is not here tonight. It's a partner of yours. Okay, because I saw that on the application.
It's on my presentation too.
Yeah, I saw it on that, but you're presenting, so they're your partner. Okay, so 135 units versus 145, they were just presented 135, and they all commented on 135, but yet today there are applicants looking at 140 plus. So were they noticed or aware of the change?
Not that I'm aware of, but there is no objective standard in our code that dictates a certain percentage of change of units. Typically, we'll look at kind of major design features or major other changes to projects that would trigger additional citizen participation meeting.
So it's a design objective standard that we have to then talk about as a percentage change. So if someone's presented 100 units and someone comes back and a year later and says we're doing 200 units, no one has to know about that?
200 units would be something that's double. So
Right.
as staff, we would require an additional CPP, but something like 10 units that were interior to the project, staff made the determination that was not a significant change.
So there's nothing in our code that has a percentage tied to it?
There is not.
Percentage change difference, regardless of where the units are located, there's nothing in our ordinances that talk about a percentage change?
Correct.
You made a comment, I just want to be clear. You stood up and said, I think the project could, at 157 base units with the density bonus of 55, gets to 212. Is that correct? Is that what the current allowable density is. Base units, 5.23 acres times 30 units an acre is 157. I think this is in the document. The density bonus allows for 55 more units. That's 212. Pardon me? 235. I'm sorry, I think I heard you come up and make a statement that you could do up to 275, and if I recall the slide, that was what a proposed plan by Governor Newsom on his desk, but not into law. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so 275 is irrelevant as of right now.
As of right this second, 235 is on the governor's desk to allow a new, 275
Right.
under AB 1287, which allows the new law that's coming to an effect, if he signs off on it, to a 75% density bonus, which would be, the point I was trying to make in that slide was to say that there's 235 today, and that law is changing to more density. That was the only point I was trying to articulate.
Yeah, I see that as I see that differently in the way that statement was made, but that's
That
just
was not
my
my-
own opinion. But 235 is what you could do, and you're doing less.
Yes,
So
sir.
I appreciate that. Question for our internal, maybe for Anna and Scott, if we approve it today as proposed, and I guess we're not approving it, City Council approves it, and the law passes tomorrow or the day after the approval, which one is governing law? So the project right now, let's just say we're City Council.
So they've locked in,
Yeah.
by applying, they've locked in the rules at the time that they were proposed. Now, if they wanted to revoke their application
Got it,
and
and
start over,
reapply.
they could reapply, but then they
right.
would be subject to all of the updated rules, including that one.
So I took the 275 number as a little bit of, hey, I can do more. Yes, you can, but you can't do 275. You can do 235. Okay, I just want to be clear on that statement. All right. In the, I guess it was in the citizen participation plan, there was a reference to an emergency preparedness on page 7. Was that ever shared with the attendees of in this page 7 of the CPP, they asked about emergency preparedness. Was there ever a follow-up from the city back to the citizens on emergency preparedness? Did that ever get back to them?
The evacuation study was sent to the attendees of the CPP meeting.
Okay. In the air quality assessment report, you proposed, the applicant proposed 145 kilowatts of solar. Is that still the plan?
I believe so, yeah. I don't have exact calculations.
Well,
That's what's on there.
because the renderings that were provided didn't show solar.
Didn't have solar on it, but the key is to try to maximize that solar.
Agreed. 45 electrical vehicle charging stations. Is that still the plan?
Yeah.
Is there an objective code standard for the number of charging units that we have to have?
I think it's California Building Code. I mean, they're required to put solar, they're required to put EV charging in there.
Is there a ratio?
Oh, there's a number, I don't know it offhand. but-
It's 15% of the overall parking spaces for the EV charging.
So 15% is, we're at 149? You're doing more than 50, you're doing more than 15%, okay. So you're doing more than code. Thank you, appreciate that. E-bikes storage, I saw a reference to a bike rack, singular. Is there, well, I'll ask the first question. What is the current transit stop? Where is it, and how many times a day does it come? I believe it's Route 304 from the transit report. Where is that stop? And how often does the bus come? And it's an important component because, as it was referenced by another commissioner in terms of transit, you're building 296 parking stalls, which infers people will be driving. The whole point of our climate action plan is to get people out of cars. You're going to make a business decision, and that's fine. But if you don't provide bike rack storage for people who are going to ride a bike, that's a problem. E-bike storage is now a safety issue, so hopefully in your project, you're taking care of safety in terms of where the e-bikes are going to park. Rather than in the units, is there a storage facility for that? Now, that's, again, a business decision for you guys, but a single bike rack seems to be a little light, in my opinion. Just my opinion. There's no code that requires bike racks.
I think that one's going to be a market decision. It's
I
like, if people are buying
No,
expensive
I think
e-bikes.
there's
and
a
getting
number
them
of bikes
stolen.
that are required. They don't have to be e-bikes, but isn't there based on the number of cars you park, there's a percentage that equates to how many bikes you're going to park?
If I could address that. So
Okay.
for multifamily residential, there actually is no requirement for bike parking currently. So that's something we pushed for, and as you see, there is the bike rack, but there is no actual standard for multifamily.
Oh, there you go. Something to work on.
We
Well,
we
you
can take this opportunity, since we have the developer here, to urge him to put
Let's
in
be clear, we
e-bike
can't hold
storage,
him to
otherwise
something that's not
we'll
in the
have
code.
unhappy
right?
tenants.
I'm not holding.
And we can't hold him to a bus station or a bus stop
No, but
off-site.
I want the developer who's going to build a significantly large project to understand. I mean, in other projects, I believe there are obligations, maybe not on a by right project, for offsets and, I'm familiar in the commercial side of having approvals for, and you have to then give people bus passes or trolley passes in order for, as a condition of approval. We don't have that capability in this situation, but as Commissioner Sarad mentioned, if my understanding is that your bus stop is 0.9 miles away, which is about the same distance that it takes us going to walk to the grocery store. And while this is a 6-lane road and there's a community college down the street, much like the Goodson project, there's not a bus that comes by here. And maybe that's North County Transit. It's not the developer's responsibility, but I'll ask you the question, have you called North County Transit and considered asking to them to put a bus stop in front of your project?
I have not.
Would you consider doing that? Making the phone call to North County Transit and considering asking for a bus stop?
Yes, I'm happy to reach out to them. I'm in talks with them on other projects.
I'm just trying to make sure that we have at least a reasonableness of a transit-oriented development site here based on the density that we're adding. You don't have to do it. No, I can't force you to do it either. I'm just asking you to do it. On the biological report, appreciate you moving the 4 Del Mar sand aster plants and relocate. Actually, there's 19 of them, so that's great. You're taking care of that. On the flora and fauna side, clearly the gnat catcher was brought up in the prior reports. With regard, and this is maybe more of a code question, but I didn't see, I believe it's required that you are having to buy property to offset the bird, the gnat catcher mitigation issue. Is that correct?
I don't want to misspeak that.
Okay.
My biologist here. Trying to go up there? Yes. I just don't want to incorrectly say a sentence. There is a portion, yes.
Yeah, hi, everybody. Thank you. My name is Thomas. He's not obligated, the developer's not obligated to buy off-site mitigation for gnat catcher specifically.
Okay.
That process will be gone through and approved during the Endangered Species Act consultation with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service.
So-
That could be in a combination of buying off-site property or buying what they call occupied gnatcatcher habitat credits.
So the survey was done in '05 with Dudek, and then there was another survey done in 2011. Then there was one done in 2015 by Trestles. And I was curious if from internally, are those old reports, are they stale? Do we have any obligation to have those reports updated as part of this process?
So as they indicated, they have to do a consultation with the environmental agencies. Those agencies could certainly require a new study before agreeing to any kind of mitigation or other requirements.
So that's the National Fish and Wildlife or whoever else they have to go to is going to determine that?
That's correct.
Okay, because that's almost 8 years ago, and there could be more birds or plants on that site.
That'd be through that process.
Through that process?
Through an agreement, yes.
I thought there was something somewhere that talked about an obligation for off-site mitigation. Did I miss that in the report?
No, you did not. There is the habitat requirement for providing, the applicant is proposing a 3-to-1 mitigation for Diegan coastal sage scrub.
Right.
Not all of that 3-to-1 acreage is feasible to accommodate on the property.
Right.
So there is a small portion that
Shortfall.
would need to be acquired off-site.
Right, and is that a condition of the resolution?
It's a condition of approval.
It's a condition of our approval
That's
that
correct.
you follow through on that?
Yes, sir.
And then our department, your department would then follow through that they actually did that before issuing a permit?
That's correct. So they actually need approval through the city, the coastal commission, and the environmental agencies, ultimately where that mitigation's going, and ultimately approval of that, and then follow up to make sure it's done. And that all occurs before the grading permit issuance.
So the first obligation is for on-site, which you're providing most of it. And the second obligation in terms of the pecking order was in the city, right? And then what happens after that?
Yeah, so it's on-site, in the city within the coastal zone.
In the coastal.
Kind of third option would be just in the city, potentially outside the coastal zone. If there's no other habitat, then potentially outside the city, and then we'd still push within the coastal zone.
Okay. Thank you. That was my question
Yeah,
on the
thank you.
biology side. Appreciate it. Almost done. The common area for the project it was a ratio of square footage, and it looks like you made it by about 1 square foot. Total common area, I think, including the balconies, was a calculation based on the average square footage of common area per unit. And I think you guys came in like literally 1 square foot under the requirement. You made the requirement by 1 square foot. And I think looking at the plan, we're talking about 149 units, mostly, we talked about affordable. I don't see a lot of play area, common area for, I see a pool and a jacuzzi and a clubhouse, but where would a child play at the moment based on the design you have? Do you?
Yeah, there's not. I mean,
There's not?
There's not a tot lot like in your mind
Mhm.
of children playing. There's not a space for it. When it comes to the amenity space, oh, I apologize. When it comes to the amenity space, we try to maximize the space we have without all of these constraints, from the road to the hillside to the environmental, and fitting it all in and still meeting the code, and it was a challenge. We think from operating these buildings that this is an adequate amount of space for a club room and that sort of interaction type space. But yeah, if I could fit more amenity space, I'd love to have it, candidly.
And where is the closest park, public park from your project?
I don't know that off the top of my head.
I mean, I'm asking just basic questions about a family who's going to live here, who can't take a bus. You're building to the density bonus, which gives us affordable, and I'm not getting anything about transit, and I'm not getting anything about play areas, and you don't know where the public park is for the person who's the family who's going to live there. And I think that's kind of just the basics. And I can probably go online and figure out where the park is. I don't think there's one nearby. So, it is what it is. And normally you would incorporate some of that. If it's not nearby, you try to incorporate that for the benefit of your residents. And this means you're building a different kind of project. I guess that's a business decision you guys can do, and we as a city have to live with, but just pointing out some of the obvious statements. So, can't really respond to that. Almost done. Also, I wanted to thank you and the fact that you guys are doing 89% of the site in drought-tolerant plants. Hopefully your landscape architect has considered the City of Encinitas palette for the Native Plant Commission that we have. I looked at the tree list. It's an awesome tree list. There's some great plants on there. I know the code only requires 50%, but I want to call out the fact that you guys are doing 89%. I think that's wonderful. and will help with the flora and fauna in the area, because I do think there is a transition along the wetland area, as noted. Thank you very much. This is, look, oh, I have a question. On the line that you had, on the height graph with the line showing the height waiver again, can you pull it up without the pictures? I don't know if the pictures are on there, it's fine. So this is a technical question. Is that an elevator shaft that is shown?
Yeah, it's an elevator.
Okay, yeah, that's an elevator shaft. So the waiver that you're asking for, is it for the entire, does it work that they get the waiver for the entire site? Or is it by location? Because clearly the elevator shaft, and is it measured from the top, from the grade to the top of the shaft?
I'm only, when you grant that waiver, or that request, it's for the project specific. I can't come back and go, tricked you, here's the
Right.
project, and you already gave it to me. I'd have to come back with a brand new type project.
But he doesn't have to take a waiver for the elevator tower and then
And-
a ridge and
okay.
something. He's getting a blanket waiver
Waiver.
across the entire property to go up to the maximum height that he's illustrated in those drawings.
And that's measured from, in this particular case, from the top of the parking deck, which is now the grade, because
As a R30 site, they get to determine, they get to measure from finished grade and determine where that finished grade is going to be.
Okay.
That's correct. You can't measure from the top of the podium. It's the finished grade on the outside of where the basement walls are.
Right, because that came up on another project that had a subterranean. Okay, so the height is for the entire thing, not just the front or not just the shaft. Okay, thank you.
Bob, could I ask you to share with us then where you stand on the project? So each of us have kind of gone through and given some of our thinking about it. You've asked a lot of clarifying questions, but
Yep.
you haven't really expressed where you stand as far as the position.
Well, I haven't seen the motion yet, but I would support the project. I would like to encourage a bit more amenity space for families, but again, he's referenced that it is what it is, and the business decisions and the renters will have to make that decision themselves. I do think that there should be some consideration and incorporate, the e-bikes component, because clearly people have them, and since you can't take a bus, then people are going to try to get to the store the best way they can. Bicycles, I think, are important, and there was really not too many references, but, for staff, we don't have a code for that, so that's another business decision that he's going to have to make, and so will his renters. I appreciate the fact that he's done a really good job on the native plants, and hopefully that will help the riparian area. So I guess the long-winded answer is, it's the best that we can do. I understand that there's some constraints that we have, but I think they've done a good job. I'd like it to be a little bit lower, especially the massing from El Camino Real. But again, I really don't have much to say about that. So I will support the project.
Well, I mean, it's true. This is the most,
I, on the other hand, might not support the project because I really think we need to have an approved mobility plan before approving it because of the safety issue. I'm very concerned. I would probably be willing to support it once we have an approved mobility element that has safety features on El Camino Real. But we don't have safety features on El Camino Real right now. And we had a death there this summer, earlier in June. And so to me, it seems like a very dangerous safety issue that we don't have. Our mobility plan that is approved was approved in 1989. Obviously, it was basically a rural road.
I mean, I see where you're coming from, but I mean, we can't put a moratorium on every project until we finish that, and that's kind of
Well,
what
they're
that
going to
would
vote in
imply.
November, so that's not very long to wait. We are, our RHNA, I inquired to Anna earlier if we're on target, and we are on target for meeting our RHNA number anyway, and delaying a few months doesn't mean no. It means let's wait until we have some safety in order, and maybe until there's a bus stop discussion about NCTD. I really liked that idea that Bob brought forth. I think that I think that one of the really big issues with any high-density development is there should be pre-planning for safety and transit. Transit is an integral part of all of this, because if I'm looking for affordable housing and I need to go get groceries, or I want to go down to Walmart, or I want to go to Target or whatever, do I have to hop in the car every time? No, maybe I can ride my bike, maybe, if things are safe. But maybe things aren't safe right now. And so the whole issue for me becomes, well, our last approved mobility plan was in 1989. And other than that, a lot of our mobility issues are the traffic itself. And adding 145 units adds a lot of traffic to a street that already is a street that has a lot of occurrences of crashes. So it already has a lot of accidents. So I think asking to wait a couple months until we have an approved mobility plan that increases safety may be a reason to not support until we have that.
Thank you so much. I do want to clarify that the mobility element is still in its preliminary stages, and it still has to go through an EIR process. So it's not months away. It could be 1 to 2 years. The chair was correct. We are unable to ourselves put a moratorium on moving forward with projects until any of the elements of the general plan are completed.
I think there's a lot of consensus up here about the role of the cars and traffic and all that. I do think it's off topic for this project. I'd love to see El Camino Real have reduced lanes and some other calming measures, but that's a different exercise. I think just like we can't enforce the objective design standards that were approved after their application, we can't insist that they slow down or be delayed until a future mobility plan is put in place.
Well, if we're going to consider moving forward here, we have 2 actions ahead of us. One, we either adopt the resolution or deny. And the next one after that is to provide recommendation to City Council for the reduction of public improvements. So I think the first one needs a motion. The second one, the recommendations, I feel we can kind of give them a laundry list of recommendations. They're going to want to do stuff. I would be okay with, I think I was pretty clear. I think we can squeeze another couple of feet out there and push that sidewalk back from the street just a tad. And that's pretty much my only recommendation. I figured council will do what council does.
Can we do this in 2 pieces? Can we make a motion to adopt the resolution and vote, and then talk about the recommendations we want to provide to City Council?
I think that's that's the way forward. And so I would actually entertain a motion on the project itself.
All right, I'll make a motion to adopt the resolution approving the project subject to the conditions.
I'll second that.
Right.
Can I clarify did you have any modified conditions? Okay, sorry. Other project I was thinking of. Thank you.
Susan?
All right, the motion passes with a vote of 4 yes and 1 no. And I think we will then, or I'll gavel this out, we do need to provide recommendations to City Council for the reduction of improvements. Now, I think, can I get consensus? I mean, having them blow it all the way out to 3 lanes wide and hack up half the Lux Canyon Creek is not an option. I think we're in agreement with everyone from Wormers on that one. So my recommendation would be, I believe we've got like 12 feet from the curb to where the edge of the bluff heading down into the creek is, and I'm hoping hoping you guys can come up with something that'll make that work, because I think council's gonna look at this pretty much the same way I am.
Am I understanding it correctly? It looked like the city standard required a 5-foot buffer and a 5-foot sidewalk, and they're offering or achieving a 4.5-foot sidewalk and a 4-foot buffer, so like 8.5 feet versus 10. So we're talking about 18 inches.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not just the sidewalk itself. I mean, I've been walking up and down this stretch now, and it's turning into a very walkable and bikeable area. You come from the lagoon, and you can see the bike lanes are getting wider and working their way up there. You know, once they get past Manchester, there's already beautiful sidewalks. And then this one kind of like takes a veer out into traffic. All I'm saying is, with what appears to be 12 feet to play with, you should be able to take that one where it sticks the most out into traffic and not go all the way up to the curb as it's rendered. And this one's not really up to us. It's just a recommendation. I mean,
Yeah, I think I agree with Chair Doyle on this issue of the lanes. And I also think the speed limit needs to go down. Maybe 35 miles an hour. It's turned into an area that's more residential with so many dwellings
and
on
correct me
that.
if I'm wrong, it's 55 at this area,
Yeah.
isn't it?
55 is just way too fast.
Oh, yeah.
So
And then
can
the
I
problem,
ask
of
us
course,
to-
if you make it 55 is that people are still going to go like 60
And there's
or
a process for getting it down.
And so if
First
you make it 35, they'll still exceed that probably.
If you bring it down below, what is it, 85% then, it's unenforceable and people will ignore it anyway.
So can I ask us to concentrate on making recommendations that, to this specific area and not concentrate so much on speed limit? Because we can't make a recommendation to city council to
Right.
reduce the speed limit. That has to go through a whole process with traffic.
This one is, yes. So we're specifically being asked to provide recommendations for the reduction of public improvements.
Yes, for this parcel.
And
Which I'm hearing is say that they would normally been asked to provide a 5-foot sidewalk, and they want to provide a 4.5.
they would have been,
Buffer,
they
slightly
would have
different.
been
different
required to
bike lane.
provide, to make that, just like the Jehovah's Witnesses next door who've basically created that whole extra lane, plus the parking, plus the sidewalk. They would have been required to do that.
Yeah,
according
but
to-
they're not to the benefit of us maintaining a wetlands.
Yeah, so,
Right.
yeah, so I'm agreeing with not shaving anything off of there, but I am pointing out that it seems to me that, yes, we could have either a 4.5 or a 5-foot sidewalk, and we could actually gain another even couple of feet, not even a sidewalk, just push it back, put a little green belt in between there so that
When you
people
say
don't-
push it back, are you saying push it eastward?
Push it towards the
wetland?
towards the wetland. Yes, there's 12 feet to play with there. And I think we were provided two options, which is either don't go back at all or go back 26.5 feet. And I'm saying, well, instead of 26.5 feet, I think we can go back like 3 feet further than option A. And that's my personal recommendation. And this is why I don't even know if we really should have a vote on this, and where we should provide a laundry list of these are recommendations.
Yeah, this is not required to have a vote. We would just be taking these notes back when this goes before city council.
So that minutes there could say, well, Commissioner Doyle says we should push that sidewalk back a little bit. I think we've got room. I think we've got 12 feet to play with.
Then I'm confused on what the resolution then is. If it's talking about public improvements, this is a public improvement. So what else are we supposed to be talking about?
Well, I mean, they had a whole big thing. Sage justification for reduced street improvements. And, it's basically, it was convincing. Because my first thing was like, oh, hell no, they're putting in real sidewalks. And then I saw, shoot, we've got a riparian wetland with an Isha corridor. It's like, we're not doing that. we're preserving that. But then also, I looked down and I saw it's nothing but a massive ice plant, which is gonna have to be removed. And there's going to be some minimal regrading there in order to do replanting.
Were there others other than the sidewalk in terms of city concessions, so to speak?
Not really.
I think the bike lane width was a foot different.
And you talked about the traffic cut, I mean, who's paying for the restriping out in the middle? They're gonna cut the lane on the striping
I think that's all them.
That's all them. And then the arrows
Yeah.
is them.
Yeah.
And the signs that are on the north, the west side and the east side that show the turn arrows, sign that they posted, that's the developer. Then we go back to Maria when we asked the applicant to fund the traffic circle, right?
Right.
Those are the kinds of things that we're talking about. And right now, they're paying for those improvements as part of their application.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And part of our recommendation could also be that if they're restriping there down to 12 feet, maybe they should be restriping to 11 and a half. I mean, I
think that goes beyond our, I mean,
It
I
does.
can't see a street, I would agree they should go
It's a
down to 10.
recommendation.
It's a recommendation.
The whole street should go down.
You know,
but I
while
don't
they're,
think that they're
but
gonna
while
do it.
they're restriping, while Wormers is paying for this to be restriped, you know, why not say, hey, you know, 11 and a half is better than 12? I mean, I think I saw somebody, every foot you narrow a lane, you cut the speed by like 20%. People start feeling like this, and they slow down, even if it's a big old road.
You do that
So-
on Rancho Santa Fe Road. It's how we've squeezed down the traffic speeds on.
I just think it'd be problematic for one property to do it, right? I'm thinking of Seinfeld episode where Kramer restripes a freeway, you know.
Well, the question then becomes, well, what is our suggestion in terms of how far, 500 yards to the north and 500 yards to the south? Do they?
Yeah,
I know
and
that-
I'm
I
not
know.
the traffic engineer. I think there would be consensus that we think street long, that El Camino Real is a problem street because it's too fast, and it's fast because the lanes are like a freeway lane. They're too wide.
All right, so it's an extreme position, but, hey, what about asking them to put aside in an escrow account, or we can put it aside, but we can come back to them later if the city comes down and says, you don't have to restripe it today, but if we come back to you in a year or two, it's a recommendation. It's
Sure,
not-
no,
It's not an obligation.
Yeah.
Because we've already approved it, but I'm just saying out loud, at some point, the city's gonna restripe that, to your point, and make the lanes narrower. And it's gonna be right in front of their.
And I'd see, I guess, instead of moving now into the wetlands, I'd rather just see the city come in and narrow up the lanes and reestablish the wider bike lanes and the sidewalks
But we can't
westward
do-
of our
but
project.
to-
But we can't do that.
We can't do that.
Right.
So we can only get what we can get.
Right. There was some discussion from the neighbors about a signal. Is there any?
I think it's justified, but not,
It's
I mean,
not-
just as I tried
So
to have.
that's
It's
you
not
can only
warranted.
get that if there are warrants, so there's rules about when you can
Yeah.
have.
We went through
A
this with
signal
the-
should be adaptive if there's a signal added at that intersection, because there'll be times when there's barely anybody coming in and out of Sage Drive. So an adaptive signal, not just a signal, where people are like waiting all day for nothing.
Right, yeah, it shouldn't go unless somebody's in there trying to get out, but
So-
if we,
Kevin has his specific recommendation for the minutes. Does anybody else have any other recommendations for us to present?
No, I'd like to suggest that we follow the applicant's lead on the 89% of the native plants versus the code's 50. I think the resolution only required 50, but they're offering 89, and we should take them up on that.
I think that's baked into what we've already
It is.
approved.
Yeah.
Baked
Yeah.
in that-
that one's,
We're talking only about the public right away
Public
now.
right, that's right, public.
and specifically the reduction of the El Camino Real improvements.
What about a stop sign? Is there I hate to be, is there a stop sign to come off of Sage Creek? Is there literally
yeah.
a stop sign there?
I'm
Or-
pretty sure there's a stop sign there.
I don't
I mean,
know.
I was just there, but I remember
I would think that there would
stopping.
be. I'd hate
Yeah,
to-
there'd have to be.
Yeah.
I-
Yeah.
Correct, Commissioner. There's a stop sign on Sage Creek Drive, exiting onto El Camino Real.
So I don't have any recommendations regarding this.
Pretty much what we got
The
then.
reduction of public improvements.
Should we, I think we are done with this case then. I'm going to gavel out one more time then. And proper notes were taken, Andrew, of our recommendations in such great detail. I'm going to move on with our agenda. We got 10 minutes before 10, which is, after that, we need to have, thank you, gentlemen. So, next page. Do we have any future items added by the Planning Commission? Anyone? No, everyone's learned their lesson there. Do we have any reports from planning commissioners?
Well, as you know,
Chris,
we're attending the Encinitas
Oh, yeah.
Academy.
classes.
Yep.
The three of us.
Academy, I guess they call it.
We're in the
And,
Encinitas Academy.
learning how our city works, basically, and I think at least three of us are attending it. I don't know if all of us know.
And Bob said he's coming on the 10th.
I'm going to the technology one on the 10th, which.
Oh, okay.
It's been interesting.
Yeah, it has been interesting. I'm learning stuff.
You're missing out, Bob, because
And,
the other two were fabulous.
Were they?
Yes.
Did you guys get the note about the little guided tour of Fox Point?
Yes.
So, yeah, I think I was the first. I'm stoked. I want to see
I will
that.
be joining you, Kevin. It'll be the two of us.
Excellent. Yes, none of that getting up at 8. We'll see the happy workers who are going home any minute. And, we'll take an hour talking to you before we leave at 5. Whereas you guys, anyone else gets to see the grumpy 8 o'clock version.
I'm going on the 12th at 8.
Cool. It's going to be good. And Anna, do we have any secretary reports?
I do not have any.
All right. Well, that's it. We're adjourned until October 19th, 2023. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was like watching the clock out of the corner of my eye. I was saying, oh, come on.
We're done.
That brings the amenities of a big city